All right, 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order with roll call. Myself here, Melinda, no, Tiffany,
Yes.
John,
Here.
Nikki,
Here.
Jason,
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
All right, we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first on the agenda is CC7 presentation discussion for superintendent search.
From here?
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple things to get through. Well, quite a few things to get through tonight, but we'll be pretty efficient with here. Jim and I had a chance to chat a little bit beforehand.
Do you want to just introduce yourself to
Sure
some of
can.
the people that aren't?
Yeah, I sure can. Eric Alcheski, I'm the agency administrator over at CC7. I was pleased to work with the district this summer to bring the fine gentleman at the head of the table next to Randy, Mr. Schmazel, and was fortunate enough to be selected again to help the district fund the next investigation. Excited for the opportunity, and again, I'll formally get to thank the board in person. I did the email here earlier this week, but happy to be here again and help navigate this process with you folks. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So a couple things to look at tonight for the board. There are a couple things that I'm looking to lock in. Some other stuff we're going to introduce. I'll walk us through that. The first thing that we want to take a look at is that full details calendar. I left you a packet of paper, board members too, so you have all of this in front of you in paper. What I would love to be able to do tonight is be able to lock in dates so we can protect those dates. That's really going to allow us to begin with the end in mind, lock in dates as we go through. And I'll just quickly kind of go through the calendar to kind of see where we're at. So we're starting with tonight, November 5 planning meeting, some of the agenda items we're going to cover. We're going to talk about survey windows and things like that. I understand we want to put one together, so I have some projected dates for us. And we'll talk about that. And the window is opening as early as next Monday. We'll get to that. So this is the trick one, I think, where when Mr. Smiles and I were looking at this, we would have to get a special meeting put in on December 1st to keep a good pace for us here. We got a number of items to cover that night. You can see everything from interview questions, really putting the structure of our interviews together for that first round so we can kind of plan forward for that. That would be a closed session meeting because we wouldn't be discussing things like interview questions and things of that nature. So that would be that December 1st date. Currently, we're pacing to have a recruitment window open from December 15th through January 30th. So it's a really healthy applicant window that we would have. It also covers some key events. We have the state convention is within that window as well. So we'll have ample time to hopefully recruit some really good candidates to come into the district here. We'd have some survey work that I would do with the board as we hone in on interview questions in mid-December. I'll be looking to meet with you folks again in closed session on February 4th to have a planning meeting to really hone in on the candidates. So you would have access to the candidate applications, everything, all the materials. And at that February 4 meeting, would be looking to hone in to determine which candidates you're interested in coming in to interview with us. When we plan this out, we would have that first round of interviews happening on February 17 and 18. We'll talk about structures and that as we go through here, but that would be a couple key dates for us to lock in. Again, we have some other survey for interview question work between the board and myself. We can navigate that in February. We'll do some reference and background checks in between first and second round. That'll fall on us. We'll talk about that. And then looking to lock in that second round of interviews on March 2 and 3. And that really kind of rounding up our process. And then from there, hopefully smooth sailing through some contract negotiation, put together a formal announcement, and looking to get a meeting together on March 18 then to get the approval for the hire. So again, some of the details and everything you can see in the far right-hand column. Again, I'll make sure we hit all those steps as we go through our meetings, but my goal tonight was to be able to get a commitment on the dates that we kind of have outlined right here, or talk about if we see a conflict, to find an opportunity to lock in some dates so we can stay true to our process here. Let me stop and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Aaron. So thanks very much for putting this together. I think it seems pretty comprehensive. My assumption is there would be some initial vetting by CSIS 7 prior to the interview discussion. So is a window closing on January 30th and having a first round of interviews on February 4th, give you enough time to do that kind of vetting?
Yeah, so we'd be doing that all along. So as applicants come in, we don't save it for the end. And that's something we can talk about too, in terms of when you want board to have access to the materials. Some of the districts will go with, say, hey, wait till it's all done at the end. Some of them say, hey, let's get real time. So as an applicant comes in, we create the folder, board has access. You can be reviewing this in real time with us. And I don't know if we had a chance to really look at it this summer just because of the nature of the search we're running, but what we put together is kind of a heat sheet for you. So you'll have full access to the references, to the cover letters, to the resumes, to the full applicant information. You have access to all of that. But what I'll create is kind of a cheat sheet at a glance. Here's our applicant list. I'll run through our pre-screening process that we'll talk about here as we get into this work and be able to identify, here's some ones I might recommend you consider. Certainly the choice is 100% yours as we go through there, but I'll do my best to do background checks so we're not walking into a black hole of, oops, we missed something here. I'll do our best to get around those things. So make sure I might be recommending really good quality candidates for you folks. So we can get through that process. It's not a couple day thing that happens throughout the entirety of that window when the posting is out.
One other question that I had, first, when you spoke to us last, the last board meeting, when we went ahead and made the decision to do this, one of the things that you talked about was doing a website for this search. At what point do you see that website being sprung up if you wanted to do that, or when do you need to make that decision?
Yeah, so a great conversation. It's like you read the clip notes here. We got that as part of our conversation here tonight. The template's there. It would be just a matter of polishing the dates that are in there and fine tuning all the concepts and things that you want within the website.
Okay.
So it's pretty well spun up. It could be ready within a matter of a day or two.
Okay.
Checking the calendar, looking at dates. I saw we got 2/18 up there, I think, for first round of interviews. That is parent teacher conferences here at elementary school. So we want to make sure that we don't do those and stuff.
So we'd have to find a location is what you're suggesting on that. Do we foresee a problem? Would we be okay in finding a different location somewhere within the district for that? Hey?
Yeah, we certainly can find another location at the high school or somewhere else.
Yeah.
It also coincides with our February, I believe the 18th would also be our regular board meeting. So we're going to have to move that board meeting to either a week later or however you want to do that. So once we finalize the schedule, we'll have to go back and do we want to just use this as our workshop meeting in February? Yes, we're good. 4th, we do this. And then the 18th, we move to the 19th, or we move it to the next week, or however you want to do it.
We can't even do that though, because now that you said that, and that would be the first round of interviews with representative staff, we would exclude.
You would exclude the elementary staff.
Yeah, we can't do that. So we're just gonna have to, we don't have to make that decision tonight, but we're just gonna have to be sensitive to that. Because we don't want to exclude a building.
Correct.
It's all three buildings.
It's all three buildings.
It's all three buildings. I mean,
Oh,
So you exclude everybody.
okay, yeah, so we don't want to exclude
We're all-
staff. They're all.
I just knew elementary.
it's all three buildings.
We can, I mean, there's a couple options we could consider. I find it smoother if we can pair the dates back to back, you know, so one day to the next. If there's an opportunity to split dates there between the 17th and the 19th, that could be an option. We can still get them in that week. It puts a little gap in there. I might not say it's ideal, but it's certainly doable. That shouldn't be an issue that way. I know we started getting short on weeks though, if we went much later than that to hit some of our March deadlines or goals that we had here.
Can we just,
The 16th is out for you.
16th is out for me.
16th will be the Monday. There's conferences that day as well.
can we just take it to our schedules and see what we come up with and come back there? Do we want to make that decision? Do we have to make the decision?
Yeah, we can come back on this one, as long as we can lock in some of the planning dates ahead of that to make sure that I'm walking us through all the correct steps to get to the February date step. We can fine tune that as we go in the next week or so. And when we consider 17, 18, and we'll talk about interview structures, I'll present, possible opportunities to do multiple interviews at the same time, maybe a mini round robin type of thing, where we're including I think we talked about using an advisory committee. We did that this summer, but we did all one big group, something to consider. Do we want to have separate groups? So board has a group, advisory committee has a group, and then the candidates might come through a couple different interviews in that evening is something to consider. We'll get more in depth with that stuff in our next planning meeting that we'll have, but so if we do have to find another space on a night, we'll probably have to find a couple spaces on a night if we're going to do a mini round robin of sorts. So. All right, so I'm going to make a note. We'll come back to those February dates, and should I just work with Jim on some of those dates and communicate back and forth that way?
Yeah, so board, if you could look at your calendars, I mean, it sounds like we can try to do the 16, 18 with the 1 day in between.
No,
17,
19.
I'm sorry, 17, 19. Would be the best for a lot of things, because then we can keep the board meeting on the 18th as well. You're gonna be here 3 nights in a row, but hey, it's a lot of fun place, so I don't see where that would be a problem.
And I just heard, I would not be able to go the week after.
And I mean, to be fair, and that would pull, if anything, would pulling ahead be better than pushing further out?
Going a week ahead.
So looking at like the 11th, 12th.
I would be at 10 and 12. We have our own board meeting on the night of the 11th, so I'd be splitting dates again there. Hold on a second. I'm kind of liking the 17, 19 best as our best option right now. That's going to give me a little bit more cushion when I'm, after our February 4 planning meeting, we're selecting candidates. That gives them at least a week and a half of planning to be here for the evening interviews. If we bump it a week, that cuts that time back just a little bit for them.
So 17, 19 off the top of your head, board, is that gonna work for you? What?
We'd have to miss 2
Two
basketball.
basketball games. I'm assuming that.
It's not ideal, but if we.
We're gonna be missing athletics for
Yeah.
time of the year, basketball, wrestling, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun game.
Mhm.
But the personal camera looks good. It was checking the work.
Well, we can't do that then. Senior.
Senior night for Ella.
Yeah. I'm okay missing it, not that.
Well,
We'll talk through it.
And considering other concessions we could look at, it would include probably shortening that applicant window, probably a little bit for us to jump into that first week of February. If I'm looking realistically at calendars. Yeah, because the week of the 9th would be a no-go for me. We're looking at the 16th, and the week of the 23rd is no-go. So if anything, we jump up a couple weeks. And in which case I'd probably close up that recruitment window by probably a couple weeks to miss that same kind of time frame in there. So could be another option if we want to look at that, if we're not thrilled with 17.
What does that do for our recruitment?
we would close it before we went down to Milwaukee.
So,
Yeah.
That was kind of the idea, was to keep it open until the 30th.
What's the time frame like on the games?
They start at 7, so
At 7 o'clock?
we could do something early.
Missing game isn't a thing, but I can't in good conscience ask you to miss senior night for her daughter who's participated in this forever, right?
Right.
So there's a non-conference game after that at home.
Not conference away on Thursday, so Tuesday's home, and the 19th is away.
And that's the end of the season.
No, they will. Yes. Thank you. Softball was the next one on my calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the last week of the season.
What if you started at 4?
Yeah, I mean,
Did you start at 4?
Early.
Be done by
Oh, yeah, that's an option for sure.
3:30?
I might
So,
have
I mean-
trouble with that, but I can try. I'll see what it, so what, is that what we want to do? Really?
I might suggest what we're looking at right now. 17, 19, I think would be my best recommendation.
And at time of day,
Oh, time of day. I could start as early as you guys would, as you guys can get around here. The very latest I would suggest we get started, like interviews starting at 5 would be what the latest I would start. Because if we're gonna squeeze 3 interviews in a night, second one's at 6, third one's at 7. We're probably here till 8:30, 9 o'clock as it is.
Kelly, I would appreciate if on the 17th, the Tuesday, if that could be a 4 o'clock start time. You could look or try. 19th, I mean, I can miss the 19th, that's fine.
For sure.
So the 17th, 4, 5, and 6. The 19th would be 5, 6, 7. If we have 6 candidates that we feel would be good to bring through.
Say that one more time, Jim, on those times.
4 PM, 5 PM, and 6 PM on the 17th,
And then 5, 6, 7.
on the 19th. And if we only have 5 candidates, then we drop that 6 o'clock one on the 17th.
And Craig, just fix it so the JV game goes in overtime.
Just
Technical difficulties, gym lights go out, whatever. you can do.
well, you can't have Jason the ref, so.
Not that night.
Looking at the other dates, the February 4th one, a closed session planning meeting, I'll be somewhere for a conference. So I'll be able to attend that one.
So you'll be able to see the candidates ahead of time based on what you're saying. So you'll be able to have feedback into the meeting.
Yeah, we can create a way for his voice to carry into our meeting. We can do a ranking with Jonathan, go ahead.
Could you do Zoom call? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We have events and stuff we also have.
Okay.
Any other conflicts on dates that we're looking at?
Well, I have a conflict with December 1st.
Say again?
I'm out of town on December 1st, but I don't expect things to be rearranged.
This is a workshop, so it's a little less important.
And I don't see anything there that we couldn't work around together, either, Nicole,
Yeah.
for our task for that particular meeting. We feel about the other dates? So are we landing and locking in then 17, 19 at those times we talked about?
I
Yeah.
think based on feedback from Kelly,
Yeah, I think Kelly just has to make sure that that works for her.
Okay. Okay. Do you just want to let me know then, Rain, if you guys,
yeah, one of us can,
okay,
I'll make it work.
she'll make it work.
make it work. Perfect. Yeah, it's, we did the interviews in summer, you know, it could be a long day and these will be longer nights for us and but we'll get through. It'll be good. It'll be good stuff. It'll be good stuff. It looks nice. So being able to lock that stuff in will really help. So, and again, on the sides, if you ever wondered what we're doing in all these sessions, all the details are open to farm. So what I will do then is I'll move forward. I'll lock in these dates for us. I'll continue planning our pace to those different dates here. If we identify a conflict with any of that stuff going forward, that's like a ASAP, that Aaron know things, so we can backtrack and find some other dates. Sound good? Look, my calendar might limit us a little bit to doing kind of adjustments at that point, but we'll do our best to be flexible for you guys. All right. Perfect. Corey, if you want to go back out to no.
There we go. Sorry.
That guy there. All right, so let's talk process a little bit. So, as I understand, we are interested in the survey, correct?
Mhm.
All right, so we'll talk about that more in a second here. I'm just kind of at a glance, here's the process we're walking through. We'll get that posting position or the position posted in that December timeframe that we talked about. Yep, we're good. You can get out of this one and go back out to that agenda. Thank you.
All right.
Yep, we'll get that position posted here. Now, we can cover this now. I'd love your opinion on this. Like I mentioned before, some boards want to wait to get access to everybody all at once at the very end. Some boards want to see it right from the beginning in kind of real time as they come in. I'm populating in a folder that's closed to just us. Would you rather have access as soon as possible to those, or do you want to wait till all at once? I see a lot of heads, yes. Perfect. So I'll create that folder structure. And as we start getting applicants in, it'll be real time for us. So I'll include my cheat sheet or Aaron's notes in there. You'll see applicant materials coming in real time. And so that's my note for that. Candidate selection, again, just to be very clear, that's 100% your decision on who you bring in for these. I'm going to do my best to get really great candidates in front of you. I'll give you some input based on what I'm seeing on like background and reference checks that we do in the back side of things. But again, just to be completely honest, that is 100% your selection on who we bring in through the process here. First round of interviews, we'll structure, as I talked about, we have a couple different days. We have a couple different options that we can consider. The one we did this summer where we had the big room, we had a stakeholder group, we had the advisory committee that we call it. That was part of that process. We had our board part of that process. The electronic scoring would be part of our process again, that would really look to inform the board of, well, how did we think during this time? And it's a good place to start those conversations. Again, some of these decisions on the size of the group we want to include, who we're going to include, do we want to do separate interviews? Do we want to do full group interviews? We don't need to hammer that out tonight. I just wanted to plant those seeds to let you know we can be flexible in how we do those things, right? So, and just to give you ideas, what other searches have done, we've had like a three-way rotation where we had the board doing an interview. We had a community group that we invited in to be an advisory committee. They had an interview, and then maybe we had a staff group that had an advisory committee that had an interview. And we'd rotate our candidates through those 3 sessions in an evening, get all the collective feedback that we'd be able to go back to the board that evening and be able to show you the results of how everyone kind of scored. We could do one big group. I've done really, really large groups, doable at the same time. So it's really kind of your choice on how we want to build that structure for that first round of interview. Again, not looking for any solutions tonight, just to plant some seeds. We'll knock that out at our next planning meeting, okay? Any questions as far as that interview structure before I go further?
If you did different groups, would they be like condensed interviews? So they're only here for the hour, 20 minutes of each group, or?
Yep, it'd be about, and right around that 50-minute time frame, we're knocking in 10 to 12, 13 type questions. Similar to what we did this summer a little bit. And so we'd go on the hour, and that would allow us to do one interview in those hours, and they would rotate. It's a nice little cycle that we rotate through 2 or 3 different groups during that time frame. About 10 minutes in between, lets everybody reset. Think about if we do those separate groups like that, we're probably choosing 3 different question sets that are guided, one board, one community, one staff, or if it's just board and staff. We'd want to hone in on questions that are really pertinent to that advisory committee that we're involved in.
So that candidate would be here for 3 hours.
Correct.
So to answer your
Kind of be here
question,
for the whole 3.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
correct. So it'd be 1 hour with each group, not
With each
20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. I got where you're going.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. And then we would get all the results from all the interviews.
Yep. So again, just like the summer, I'd be able to separate, here's what staff was saying, here's what community was saying, here's what you said, here's what it looks like all together, here's what it looks like.
Just a reminder that with that live website in real time with the candidates, that's all confidential. You don't want to share that with anybody. You know, I wouldn't even talk amongst each other about that to keep the sanctity of the process.
Yep, and that's a great point, Jim, too. So in fact, the only people that'll see that is essentially myself and the board at the very end. So that's not a public facing, it's not even a advisory committee facing. The only thing that, just like the summer, that the advisory committee members and that you will see is your score sheet for your candidates, right? Very similar, same process that we did this summer with that. I'll have the master sheet in the background where everything's pumping into. And even with that, and I think we talked about it this summer too, it's a good place to start the conversation. It's not an end all be all. Well, that was the highest score. That's our person. That's it, right? No, it's a good place to start the conversation because there's more to it than just a number, right? So we'll have those conversations after that, but it's a great place to start.
Yeah, that worked out really well this summer.
Another comment? Now I've got Bob Seeger stuck in my head, feel like a number. I just can't, you had to do that, didn't you?
Not intentional.
So if you do go into the groups, right? Just a reminder that the second round interviews, you're all in the same room together. So if you do the first round with all in the same room together, it's kind of redundant. So maybe you want to be a little bit, thoughtful about that. And I know Aaron's about ready to jump in here in a second, but you might want to have 2 and 2, or 3 in one room, 2 in the other, 2 in the other, and see how other people react to the candidate instead of necessarily interviewing them yourself.
Thank you. So I'll be jumping on it, right?
Yep.
And your process to drive, I'll tell you what commonly happens, and you can tell me, Aaron, we want to do something different. Perfect. We'll drive it that way. Second round is commonly just the board, right? Because typically at that, we really limit the question set and let the board members drill in deeper on specific questions, or, hey, you said something during that first round. I want to ask you more about that. So we get more off script during that time. First round, I'm really pretty rigid, and I think you guys saw that this summer too. We stick pretty tight to the script. We're not going to veer. Second round is almost more dialogue. And so oftentimes it lends itself to be really a board and candidate discussion rather than advisory committee. So that advisory committee would really come in during that first round to help give that voice of the greater community to the board of, here's what we liked, here's how we scored, here's what we liked. And then you can make that decision who might come around that second round. Any other questions as we soak on different interview structures we can consider?
At what point in the schedule would we want to have, if we're doing community members selected, I guess?
Yep, that's absolutely something that we'll cover in one of our planning meetings. So if we're going to include either community members and or staff, we'd be mindful of, well, how are we selecting them? Are we tapping people on the shoulder? Are we putting open invites? I would strongly recommend if we do that, we get a nice cross section of both the community and the districts. So we get members from elementary, middle, high, maybe we've got teachers, maybe we've got support staff, maybe we have administrators, looking at community members who would be some key community partners that we want to include as part of our process. And let me be clear with that too, it's not always the people who are the champions for the district. Sometimes you need some of those folks who might question sometimes to be part of it as well. You need some of that insight. So just to be really clear that you're not loading a deck that, hey, well, I know this is what Rain wants, so I'm going to collect, pick these community members to be part, or these staff members to be part of it. That's not at all the intention. Not at all the intention.
So will we be slating to select those folks by, what's that, February 4th time?
Oh, well, yeah, well before that
Okay.
February 4th time, because we're going to want to communicate with those folks. We'll start those conversations as early as that December meeting.
Okay.
By that February 4th date, we'll have it locked in and have communication going out. Right, so they'll have that week and a half or 2 week time to plan as well because really it's a commitment for them. So whoever's part of it needs to be part of it the whole way through for that first round. They got to be able to come to this.
We have the availability for the people that we're going to interview to specifically let those people see a little bit about that candidate before they come in. I'm not saying the resume or anything like that. Like, can you give like a?
We'll be really tight on that. We'll be really tight on that, and I just got to be blunt about that. They'll get candidate information that night, kind of like this summer. Again, we'll have folders set up for everybody. It'll have to remain strictly confidential. In fact, we'll get signatures again that everything, paperwork stays in the room. They'll get resumes and reference letters and all that stuff night of. There's too much at stake to say, okay, please just keep this secret. So it's one of those things that we will keep pretty tight throughout the process there. The points in time where we have to be more public about it is when we drop below like 5 candidates, below 6 candidates. And then there's some open records laws that we have to release names in those spaces. But and in those times too, it's a really upfront conversation with our candidates, because some of them may have told their district or may not have told their district that they were looking. And it's the point in time where they need to make a decision to have some conversations once we have to do a public release of that information.
Get that And I'm wondering if we can find like a happy space where at least people come in like a half hour to an hour early and have a chance to look at that.
That is exactly right.
Okay, okay, and that's perfect. Like, I just don't want, here's a packet, like, go, I don't want our community or our staff to be able to rush through this. I want them to be able to be.
My goal to interview nights is to be here at least 2 hours ahead of time to make sure the room's set up, inviting people in at least an hour ahead of time so they can review, make sure the technology's up and running and working, make sure we get everyone here at least a half hour beforehand so I can go over the directions for everything and then kind of pace it out.
Okay.
So, that sounds like a good happening.
Yeah.
Any other questions regarding both first or second round interviews as we kind of hit upon both of those things? A process that we'll talk about too, we don't have to define tonight, either between CISA 7 or the board. I started putting our reference checks between the first and second round. Reason being, I don't want to get you guys to a second round, have a candidate in front of you and find something in a reference check that we could have weaned out and not included that candidate in the second round. And now we just limited our options, right? So we started doing those reference checks after that first round of interviews with folks that you would like to invite back to that second round. It's a conversation I have with the candidates and when they're leaving to say, hey, just to let you know, if you're selected, you get a call from me tomorrow morning. You're gonna have till about noon to talk to your references because we're gonna start calling at noon so we can keep our process going. So we like to kind of wean that in there between that first and second round. One of those things too that we offer that we can certainly do at CISA 7, some boards say, you know what, I want to hear directly from their board members or from their references. Tell me more about that so you can ask your own questions. Again, something that we can talk about too at a later planning session just to plant that seed. And we can take your lead as to who you would like to complete those reference checks. Same thing with contract negotiation. Again, that's something we could support. If it's something the district wants to do, that'd be fantastic as well, right on through the contract offer. So again, any questions through the processes outlined on here? Knowing again, we're going to drive through all this information in our upcoming planning.
Those reference checks are a more in-depth reference check, right? We are getting a reference check on people before that first.
We're doing, yeah. So up front, we'll be doing the, right, I guess it's semantics, right?
Yeah.
We'll be doing more of the background checks and some of the informal checks that we'll do in the background. The reference checks is the references that they included. Hopefully we're seeing board members and other administrators and that.
Okay.
All right, so we'll jump down to number 3. So website creation, you should be able to click on that for us, Corey. And so this is a skeleton of what's up and running that could be live as soon as we all agree on the content. A lot of the stuff you're going to see in here is probably from your website, some of the information about the district. Some of the information we figured that we could put in here is some information for applicants. So it could be a one-stop shop for them. So they're seeing maybe the important dates. Hey, how do I apply for this? Boom, I can click on that. I'm going to get the information on how I apply. Hiring process would essentially outline our dates that we're going to walk through everything. We could link the community survey right to this website as well. So as we're pushing out communication to say, hey, we got the survey going, you can find it here. And you can link right back into this website. Updates, again, would be part of our, hey, we narrowed our candidates down to 6. We have first round interviews coming up, or hey, we're going to our second round. Here's our 2 finalists. You know, that's the intention for that. And even up to a board access, if we truly wanted a one-stop shop, we could link in your access to our candidate folder structure for the board members. So again, you too have a one-stop shop on some of those things.
Can that board access get like send me a notification when you drop something in there? Notify my email?
Yes, what we could do, we could set up a notification on the spreadsheet that I use to anytime the sheet changes to send out an email to the board. That'd be the easiest way because I don't know how to do it on a folder creation, but as I'm adding names and adjusting that, it can certainly send out information. We can walk through how to set that up. So that was some ideas that we had about a website. I know we talked about a little bit. Is that something that we're interested in doing on the website?
I think it's a great idea. Having the community able to come and check, see progress from candidates and stuff as well, being able to get information about us, see pictures like this. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Is there something missing that, like, Aaron, it'd be even better if you had
You go to the about the district page again.
and I could work with somebody in the district too to fine tune that. That was just our found some stuff and some cool pictures to put up there.
Can you give us access to that? So when we come back on the first, they've had some time to look at it?
Yep, it should be right in the electric agenda that I sent you.
Okay.
guys.
So there you go.
Yep, so we can look at that. What that's gonna limit us to just a little bit, I'm okay with that. We just have to find, other ways to communicate out like the survey data. So the survey doesn't have to live or die within the website. We'll just be really effective out of the communication points to push that out. So push, we'll work on website on December 1, and we come back together. Okay. So the next thing I'd like a little direction on tonight too is some survey questions. So this is also in front of you. And it's also in the electronic folder here. So what I sent you, like I mentioned last time, this is a suggestion or survey questions that we've used in the past. By no means do you need to take this as is. You might handpick 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 questions from this, whatever it is that you really want to glean from information from staff and the community. You might have some other questions you might be interested in introducing, but it's just a place to start the conversation of what is it we're looking to learn from the community and the staff survey. And just kind of chit-chatting before, it might be beneficial just to maybe go board member to get a sense of what stood out to you or what we'd be looking to learn from the survey to really start honing in on the questions. Last thing I'm going to say before I turn it over to our board members is you can see on there where it says all, could be an attended question that both community and staff are getting. Some of them might just say staff, some of them might just say community, just to give you a sense of it's not one gigantic survey. There's 2 really kind of intertwined in that document. So hopefully that makes sense as well. All right, board members, what was your thought about survey questions?
You want to start with Jason and just go around the room?
Sounds good.
Yeah, when I looked through them, they all seem to make sense to me. I'm glad that you clarified that, right? Because I don't want like people getting bogged down with questions that wouldn't pertain to them if they're not staff, if they're not just a general member of the community, right? If they're both staff and community, I would assume that they would just get the staff ones, or would they get both of them?
They would have access to both.
Okay.
And so let's see, I'm assuming that you do have staff members who are also community members. And realistically, they should be able to answer both surveys. Both the voice should count as both staff and a community.
Okay, no, I think that's great. The only other thing that I had was the question about level, superintendent, experience level with different levels of education.
On page 2 on the bottom.
I don't know.
So we had, well, so there is the one question like, should they have been a superintendent? Should they have been a district officer?
No,
Should they have been a principal? Not that one.
No. Experience level, experience by school level on page 3, top question.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, is that pretty, I mean, so like what experience level are we looking at for that? Like, I mean, quite honestly, like I'm just gonna kind of paraphrase this. He probably doesn't have a lot of experience, I would guess, with early childhood, right? And if somebody wanted to like just take that next step in their career, I mean, so I guess I don't know. Do you often see that question being asked?
That question got added through on the back side of a district saying, hey, I wish we would have had this question because we got to the interview process and it was really evident one of the candidates that they brought forward didn't have any secondary experience, and which was a really important aspect that they were looking to drive through. And they didn't catch that through resume work either.
Yeah.
And so, Aaron, I wish we would have had on the survey. So it's one that we put out there. A few have taken it. Just like the classroom teaching experience years, how long have you taught in a classroom? That's a take it or leave it one too that some districts might choose.
Yeah, that one didn't strike me as odd as the other one. So that was my only question actually.
Okay. Is there anything you favored, or you say, hey, are you saying wrap it all? Are you saying?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think the more that you ask, the better kind of way you're gonna get into a standard deviation. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
Corey, I want to just illustrate something too. If you would, Corey, scroll back up and go to one of the survey links there to either family or community. Yeah, pick one, doesn't matter. So this is a sense, oh, really? Why did I do that? Sorry, never mind.
Maybe you can grab that on your phone quick.
It's set up, I could. It's set up to be, for example, when it's asking for your top 3 priorities.
Yeah.
What it's stacked up to be is it's one question. It has those definitions as we saw like on page 3, for example, like the leadership characteristics. Oh, there we go.
This one's open right now, so.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead and click on, get us to the next screen. You have to choose one of the years there.
Okay, so
These are all
take it to a degree here to just to
Yeah.
get to the point.
Yeah. Next. Yep, click through these ones as well. I just want to show an example of when we ask, like, what are your top 3 priorities?
Okay. That was gonna be my question, so appreciate that.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Here it is. All right. So in this section here, we're really kind of defining, these are some really important leadership characteristics that we'd like to see in any leader who's coming in, right? But what we're looking to narrow down is what are those top 3 things. So we do a good job of defining them all here. And as we scroll down, then there are 3 stack questions that say, what's your first priority? What's your second priority? What's your third priority? So there's 3 separate questions technically, but it's asking the same thing on that same structure for your other question. So I just wanted to make sure that you were clear when we have the, give us your top 3, that's how we have the survey kind of built. And what that allows us to do is later on, pull the data apart between, well, here's what students said, here's what family members with students in the district said, here's what family members with no students in the district said, here's what staff said. So building it that way allows us to kind of tear that data apart. So I just wanted to show that before I got into it. Okay. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
I like the depth and the breadth of almost all of the questions. I can't say there's any that I would particularly say I don't like or want to throw out. I guess my biggest concern is what is the average amount of time that person would spend taking this survey? Just from the idea of, you know, how many times you've gone into like, take the free survey, get a free coffee, and you start it and you're like, oh my God, this is too long, abandon ship, right? So like, we want it to be, we want lots of information, I agree, but also we want to make sure that people will take 5 minutes, but if it's longer than that, I feel like they might abandon ship on us. So
Yeah. 5 to 10 is the feedback that we've gotten on it,
Okay.
depending on how quickly and how in depth that they read. The other thing that we learned is really important on the bottom of the survey, you can see where you're at, what your progress is.
Sure.
So you can see, okay, I got 2 screens up, I got 1 screen up. So
Okay.
a couple of tools that we built in there just to help offset that. Okay, how long is this thing?
So if we included the questions you provided for us, would that put us in that window? Or are you looking for us to narrow down?
I think you're welcome to narrow down. 5 to 10 is going to be that average that we're seeing kind of like with this as is.
Sure.
Some districts say, Aaron, I want 3 minutes is where we want to get to. I'm like, okay, 5 questions that may be best, right? So really kind of depending on if you want to hone in on it, if you want to limit that time, or if you like the breadth, like you mentioned.
I like the happy medium of like, get as much data as you can, but keep it in that window so that people don't tire on us and abandon it.
Nicole?
I'm gonna echo kind of, there was nothing I didn't like, and then everyone I went, oh, that's a good question. I would have thought of that. So I think this covers just about everything. I did get stuck on the same question Jason mentioned, just the language and the way that was worded.
Sure.
I guess, are you asking, so if I'm taking a survey, I'd have to say that experience at all those levels is required?
Again, it would be the 3 separate questions.
So
it
it's
would be
3,
experience
this is
with the high
broken
school,
into 3
yep,
questions.
Required, preferred, not required.
Got it.
Yep, elementary, middle.
I was just confused by that wording, but.
Yep.
So, sorry if so how long were you thinking this in
5 to 10 minute
entirety
window as is.
as is?
Again, it's tough to say that because some people.
Yeah,
read it different
I
ways,
would
and
have
some
to, like,
people really blow over some of the
Reread it, slow it down.
information, but that's the feedback that we've got.
I don't know what I would throw out though.
Yeah.
I guess I'm comfortable, my personal opinion, I'm comfortable with 5 to 10. If you don't want to take 5 to 10 minutes and you tell me that you really have an opinion, Do you have an opinion?
Right.
If you can't take 5 to 10 minutes?
Thinking too,
that's-
Nikki, reading this packet versus what he's doing with the click and point is much, it just,
For
it's,
sure.
it's nicer to read this
The
way.
online version is,
Yes.
and it plays pretty well on a phone too. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm good.
Right?
I mean, I went through, kind of starred some of the ones that I would.
And then I start all of them, so then I was.
What is your range of student grade? So from a community member, knowing who's filling it out. And then also, how long have you been part of the district? And, relationships, so knowing if they're student level, parent level, guardian, grandparent,
Can you
whatever.
say that one more time, please?
The community, so what the relationship is with the students are.
Oh, yeah.
And then, experience by position, classroom and teaching experience on page 2. On page 4, the top, which is your primary type of leadership style. On page 6, staff priorities. And then on page 10, which was community engagement, which brings me to the sheet that I'd handed out. If we want to get some more of those questions or types of questions, also community being that we've had some feedback from community. Does it make sense for us to engage a little bit more in that community side of it?
So you're saying the sheet that you gave us to add these into?
Not all of them, but if we wanted to pick a couple of them, so,
Add to it
yeah,
underneath that community engagement piece.
yeah.
Okay.
So, Brandon, would there be any that you would say, let's mix from the survey? Let's do this if we could.
Sure.
Finish the other board members in the packet and then take a look at the sheet you did, and see what you want to add. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Are you done?
Yep.
I didn't really, I liked all the questions. I didn't really have any questions on them. And then just to add that, I liked the questions about the district at the end, that they could actually write something in there. Yeah.
And all that data that we get from that, we create kind of a dashboard, and I don't know, maybe I shared it with you when I was meeting with you folks last time. But it becomes, you can toggle it, so you can, like I said, you can click on information, what did students say, what did parents say, right, we showed you that. And with those questions, it would actually, you could be able to theme that out, and then put those themes in place, so rather than have 500 some comments that might get submitted, hopefully we can theme out and put in the top themes that we're writing for pluses and minuses for the district. So that's how we usually manage that section.
Okay.
That was the last thing I wanted to ask about was how do you summarize the written responses for us? So, yeah, I thought it was pretty great. Lots of questions and everything within there. So, yeah, I would say.
Well, great, appreciate all the feedback on that. So it sounds like let's go back to range sheet then to see if we want to include any of those. 'Cause what I'm catching is, it sounds like we like what the current structure is of all the questions here. And what we're considering is adding a couple more from range sheet, is that correct?
I'd say,
I believe so.
yeah.
I can consider it, yeah.
And Rain, I'll let you kind of talk through if people have questions or if you want to talk to those questions. Specific.
I guess my first question, having a little bit of chance to read through some of them, does it make sense? Do we want to add a little bit more on that community side of it? So I'm not saying we have to, but I want to know if we feel there's a need in the current survey. If not, we can nix it and, you know.
3 and 7.
Those are, I circled 1 and 7.
I had 7 as well.
We like 7. Just want to make sure they fit in with the way this question is asked in the CC survey. Some important focus areas.
There are, the open-ended questions on the bottom as well, but I have a feeling that by asking those, it could get into the weeds a little bit, so.
Aaron, would your, recommendation be to not have more than 2 open-ended questions at the end?
Well, it really kind of all depends what you want to do with that information, what the goal of it is, right? I mean, we could, the more open-ended questions that we put in there, let's say this here. It takes away some of our ability to disaggregate that data, like what does staff think, what do parents, what do students think, what do parents want students, right? So it really just becomes more free text, or like we mentioned before, what we end up doing is analyzing it and kind of consolidating it in one. So I don't have a strong recommendation to say 2 is the right number. If you want 3 or 4 free right answers, we could certainly build that in there. Board, you would have access to all the raw data, and we would be able to synthesize that through and say, here are the themes that came out of that. So you can kind of get a sense and say, well, yep, that looks like those themes, or I thought I heard some of these other things on there too. So I can bring that back as I analyze, here's the themes, and you would also have access to that raw data as well. A long way to say, we could do 2, we could do 4, we could do 5. You'll learn I'm pretty flexible with most things for this. So whatever makes you guys feel the most comfortable and that you're getting the voice of the community.
I know that we're gonna expand that 5 to 10 minute time frame too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a trade-off.
I do like 3 and 7, to Jim's point. It gives us a little bit of a gauge of where they're looking out externally, not just in our 4 walls of the district, so.
I do like number 8. I'm curious to see what is it that other people are thinking are the positives that we currently have. What their focus or attention would be. Overall points.
I think that's some interesting information, but I don't know how is that going to guide us in the selection of a superintendent?
I mean, some of these questions, instead of putting in the survey, right, you just save it. Put it as part of the community, like interview packet too, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
that could be a good place for some of them.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
Again, I don't have to take all of them or any of them for that matter, so.
No, I'm looking at them at the different lines, like, I think that's how I'm gonna do. So maybe include 3 and save 7 for like an interview question. I don't know.
Nicole, you're suggesting 3. And I think I heard Brain say 3 and 7 as a, I'm just trying to paraphrase what I was hearing with that.
I'm trying to shift them, like what fits better in the survey versus what could be a good interview question and save for the interview.
Well, it depends what you want to do with the information, right? Do you want it to inform what you're looking for in your candidate? That might inform your job posting, that might inform our interview questions, which is a lot of what the survey could and should do for us. during the interview itself, then that's informing us about that person, right? So the survey, like I mentioned, is intended that can help us decide what we want to have in a job posting, help us frame what we're looking for during the pre-screening process and then the interview itself. So it could serve two different purposes depending on what you want to gain from the survey questions. Other advocacy for right now, the two questions I heard about is 3 or 7. Short of going through a formal first and second.
The only other would be possibly adding 9 as a write-in for comments.
I feel like that kind of plays into 7.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
it
I'm thinking if you
encompasses
did
that.
3 and 9 then, and leave 7 out.
I think we're not have a free form for that one.
Okay.
Could you just take 9 and use that as a substitution for both 3 and 7?
Because it's a survey, they're just gauging your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah, through free write, you kind of reframe the question to drill into what 3 and 7 is asking about, that community engagement, what type of learning. And
Yeah, that would be my goal.
Okay.
I'm fine with anything.
What's your insight, Jim?
7 gives you gotta remember, you got QQ public out there that isn't gonna think of these things on their own. They're not gonna think of these things on
I'm
their
thinking
own.
people aren't gonna wanna write you an essay,
So-
they're gonna wanna click a button.
You put 7 on there, it makes them think that way instead of open-ended. So then you use 7 in the survey, and then when you get to the questions back to Jason, then you ask 9 about, what are things candidate that you are going to? So I think you can use them both, but I would give them more. I would do 3 and 7 still.
Now I changed it.
Or did you want the essay
I
one?
think you just have
No,
it.
you're saying no essay.
You have
No.
it.
Essay.
Just 3 and 7 essays for the interview.
I know.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm hearing include 3 and 7 into the survey.
Why
Are
not?
those
Yeah.
official, are those official head shakes?
Official handshake.
Official head shakes?
Yeah.
All right, so I will work to add 3 and 7. Is the intention, those look like community focused questions, just community focused questions? You want the,
Yeah.
okay, so, okay. All right, any other comments, questions on the survey?
So, yeah.
Hey, Angie.
You voted?
Instead of an official
Oh, okay.
handshake.
Sorry.
It's
Just
so
very
far away
complimentary.
on the other side.
My seat's so chill. it's
All right, so with that, I had the anticipated survey window to be November 10th, which is Monday already, correct?
Yep.
Open for a 2-week period through the 24th. I can get my team on that and draft this if we're good with the structures and everything that we looked at and talked about. We can make sure we get that up and ready.
So Aaron, with the website, could we get that launched and have the survey is on the website and then add other stuff later versus, okay.
And so who would be my go-to to talk to pushing stuff through like your messaging systems through the community? And Ray did this. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Just use all of them.
Are you default, Corey?
Yeah, generally, yeah, and then I would say it would be Jim and I probably together to talk about some of that stuff, but I mean,
Yep.
I generally do a lot of the district level.
It's a really positive resource to get that survey out there. Obviously, you're not getting everybody in the community, so we'd have to find other means to communicate that out. And so I would be, again, looking to, I don't know, someone in the district of getting recommendations on how do we get the greater word out to the community in this 2-week window that we're gonna have. Hey, we really want Facebook pages, I'm assuming, social media, you know, we can get it all out there.
Corey and I,
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't want to, you know, we do have some opportunities to have people subscribe to certain things if we want to as well. If they're not on social media, we can also, there's some strategies I think we can probably employ.
Do you have a weekly publication, newspaper or something?
yeah, we'll get it in
Yeah,
next
let's do it.
Wednesday,
So you can get it in that, add into a website somewhere so you can
right next to the kitchen help, so they can fill out both.
write them hand in hand.
You don't want to start launching that?
Are there things we gather through the survey at all? Like, are people putting in an email or anything like that? So just going to a link.
Open source. Yeah, so we'll send,
Okay.
well, there'll be 2 specific links. You know, one we'll do for internal staff because we have that one separated out and all the data will come back. So that one will use probably your email list. I can work with Corey and Jim on your email list, working in the communication for staff. And the other one will be a separate link for the community.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so if I heard right on this, I heard we could certainly get the website up and drafted. Maybe we have about the district and have the community survey as another area to have a link right up here. Is that what I heard?
There'll be a Spanish version of the.
We can work through some different translation services. And the one we're running for another district in our region here, we did something just like this, where it actually walks through directions on how to help use the accessibility tools right on their browser. We've sort of learned we can't always guess all the different language types that might come. This allows people to self-select and then get their browser and to use those accessibility tools built with them.
I love that.
Short of building 40 different
Yeah.
surveys and putting them out there though. Give me 1 second to drop a note about survey. All right, final questions, thoughts about survey and our website before we move on to our final part. All right, you guys are moving to shaking a minute. I appreciate that. So the last part again isn't something, again, we don't have to hone in on tonight, but I wanted to plant the seeds so we can have an understanding. That's the job posting. So you have that in front of you as well. 2 things I want to clarify in this. What this isn't is a job description. You as a district determine the job description. This is simply a job posting that's saying, hey, this position is available for us. A couple things we usually like to do on the job posting is a couple hooks, like what's cool about the district, what's cool about the community. So we try to pull some of that stuff. What you're seeing in here right now, if you like it and it looks good, that's because it's right from your website, the Know Us page on your website. So it's really just a placeholder. And at our next planning meeting, I would love your input on how we can make that better. If there are pieces missing in the Know Us for either the community or the school district that you want to make sure that we're telling that story. This is we have just a few minutes of time when people are looking at these job postings to really kind of hook somebody. So it's a great opportunity to be meaningful about what you want them to know about the community and the district in a short period of time with that. So that's what you're seeing on the current job posting in the About Us phase. And the portion that talks about the Board of Education is seeking a candidate who, some common positive things we like to see in our candidates when they're applying, and that's an area too that we're going to hone in and focus on. Maybe this is an area that we allow the survey to kind of help guide us through some of those look fors that the district is looking for. I just wanted to point that out. As we look at that second page, some more just process-driven things here, how to apply. So when we post this out, it's going to go out on the weekend. It's going to go out on also all the common sites for that. What it's going to point them back to is an email address that points back to us that we collect all their data. Yes, I'll go into weekend and grab it. Yes, I'll go into also and grab it, but it just works smoother if we can push them back to us through email. So we'll create a CISA-7 email address for the Right Stone search to grab that information. Employers here, we got your website link there. We'll put the important dates in there too, right up front, so the candidates understand what they're getting into. And I always put a disclaimer that, hey, the information you put in here is sure to the best of your knowledge. If we find out otherwise, it could be a disqualification for the position that way too. And then your nondescript statement, I just worked into the bottom. So I just wanted to talk about tonight, here are the common structures we see in a job posting. what we're looking to do with the job posting, and just to plant some seeds, so when we come together in December, we can hone in on and tighten up really what we want that job posting to look like. Any questions about the posting? All right, any general questions at all for the stuff we went through? Because I've gone through my agenda. Want to make sure I answer your questions for everything that you wanted to hear about tonight.
So we'll have the survey, we'll close before Thanksgiving, we'll give us a week or so to have that information to think about putting into the job posting. We'll talk about it December 1st.
Yeah.
Posting goes up on the 15th.
Yep, so yeah, you got it. That's the process. So at our December 1st meeting, I'll have the results of the survey in our database for you to kind of review the help guide the job posting that we'll look at and prepare that for December 15th recruitment window. So the December 1st planning meeting will, again, that's a closed one. We'll be here. It'll be a little bit of time. We'll have at least a solid hour and a half of prep time that we'll have to get through.
Is that still at 6 o'clock as well?
That's your meeting I'm joining. So whenever you put that meeting together, I'll be here for.
I'm going to suggest that, because of all the time that this is going to take, that December 1st is our workshop meeting that week, and not do the 3rd. So then we'll just do the 1st and not do the 3rd. So 6 o'clock would be when we usually would meet, if that makes sense to everybody. So 6 o'clock.
We got like second readings of policy updates to do, so I don't have it that day.
Yeah, we'll have those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do something else besides this on the 1st,
Okay.
which is, that's a great point. So we can hopefully get the first reading on the 19th of November, and then we can chit chat about it like we usually do, and then have the second reading in December. So yeah, we can add something else.
So we're moving the board workshop from the 3rd to the 1st, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And then whoever's posting your meeting for that day, just to ensure that we get to a closed session, is it 19.851C?
Yeah, I think it's
Check
C.
on that, but I should know that off the top of my head. But
Yeah, it's C.
I think it's right. Just to make sure that gets posted properly, so we don't.
Yeah.
So we can get to closed session and talk about interview questions.
So you think C says what? That it posting for
So now you're challenging me.
I think it's about the evaluations or,
It's about the hiring process or the contract.
we got her.
The district employee.
Amber and I will figure it out.
I just emailed another district.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We love learning.
So Amber, administrative assistant, I don't know if you met before. Hi. I'll probably need you at different points of the process here when we start talking logistics for the interviews and things like that. So we'll, yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And if ever there's any questions, I think you guys have all my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Okay. Thanks for your time tonight.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you. Watch for deer.
That's Wisconsinite, I love you.
All right, so for interest of our guests that are here, we're gonna move D up now, which is discussion of the senior trip to New York. This is the.
Amanda, you want to sit next to Jen? Do you want to stand in front? We got white hot spotlights. We've got all kinds.
Just background, I'm Amy Markov, I teach English. I'm the student council advisor at the high school and have been, this is my 4th year of doing student council. So, part of what student council does is, you know, what's going on, what your kids want to do. When I took over, there was no senior trip at all. So that first year we did a senior sunset. I think there were like 12 people in a bouncy house there. And then they asked, can we do something a little bit more than that? Well, actually, the next year they wanted to spend like $800 on a bouncy house. So I said, well, for that, let's go somewhere. So then we started going to brewer games. And at our August student council meeting, the seniors brought up, hey, can we do a river trip? So started looking into it. I have taken 3 different school groups to just the Washington DC trip with World Strides. It's an incredible experience. And so they were like, well, can we do DC and New York? They kind of saw the options. And so that's the option that they wanted to throw out there. So, yeah. So here we are. I surveyed the kids, when was that? September 16th. And so 28 said that they would be interested in doing the trip. I did have the cost on that survey, so I don't know, they just thought mom and dad would pick up the tab or how they were going to do this. But so yeah, 28 kids were interested in the Washington DC New York trip. Just by comparison, the brewery last year, I think we took 46. So
Were
I
there, did you have any surveys for the brew game when you started it, or? just
yep.
kind of-
So
okay.
before, when we started the brewer game, it was kind of a Wisconsin Dells or Brewers or Senior Sunset, you know, started kind of small. And so both years they chose brewer game. I think that experience a lot depends on the weather. So last year we had the whole tailgate set up, a pavilion that we rented, but the weather wasn't great. So it was kind of go in, watch, go out. There wasn't a whole lot to it. And so part of the big reason, another big reason why I want to propose the trip is we have a lot of kids who want these types of experiences, but maybe wouldn't be able to do it on their own. And senior year is the last time where you can sell popcorn to go on a trip, right? Like, it's kind of the last opportunity to get some fundraising to go be able to experience these things. So yeah, the last year that I took, there were over 50 8th graders that went with. And it was a great trip. They're going from sunup to sundown, like they're too tired at the end of the day to misbehave. So that's always nice. And then Mr. Erickson has been taking kids to Washington DC for the past, I don't know, it's 2 or 3 years. And that's been, I think he's taken anywhere from 8 to 10 kids. And that was open to, has it all grade levels, I think? Yeah, and so the seniors liked the idea of, hey, this is our last hurrah together. And I think maybe that's why there's more interested. Now, how many actually go, I wouldn't know until we could have a parent meeting and get things going. But if we are going to do this, I know you can't vote tonight, but if I could get official head shakes, was that the term? Because we would need to go with, we would need a parent meeting, we would need fundraising. I've got Mr. Wright coming on November 25th. And that would be an incredible opportunity for fundraising, but I can't do that if I don't know. So.
Yeah, because I saw on here your note was Fall Fest. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that was like, but yeah, yep.
When do they go on this?
So this would be March 20, it's on here
Oh,
somewhere.
I see it. 25th to the 30th.
Yep, and so the reason for those dates is that Wednesday, the juniors take the ACT, so there's no school.
Okay.
And then there's school, and then there's an in-service day. So if we did it those dates, kids would miss each class once. And honestly, what they learn from these trips, I mean, no offense to my in-class curriculum, but they take a lot more out of these trips than what I can do in a classroom, so. And The Outsiders is on Broadway, so. So I all read that in 8th grade or 7th grade.
I think it's an awesome opportunity for them to do.
Do you have a minimum number that you would take?
10.
10.
Mhm. Yeah. And World Strides provides a 1 to 10 chaperone.
Okay.
So, and parents could go if they can't, you know, would love to have responsible parents come. The other thing that I really, really like about World Strides is they have people hired for the hotel at night. So we have someone, an adult, sitting in our hallway at night so that I can like actually sleep. And they watch the rooms, they make sure. They have medic on call program, which I did have one girl gets sick at the US Capitol building. That's a great place to get sick. She sat there for 2 hours and then they gave us a behind the scenes tour of all the senator offices, and World Strides then got us on a taxi to catch up with the rest of the group. That was when we had like 50, so there were several chaperones. So they do a nice job. World Strides does in making sure everybody's safe and covered, and that they have great experiences. So, questions for me?
Corey, can you scroll? I think there's something that was up there about out of state travel and needing 180 days.
Looking at one,
You just up to
Sorry.
the level.
So
maybe this
my
right
first
here.
proposal was submitted on September 5th.
Say that again.
She was within the.
My first
So, yeah,
proposal
so
was submitted on
this is
September 5th.
recommended, approached me with it, it took us a while to vet it, but it was within that window, and that was one of the concerns that she had raised, and I said, we want to vet this and, ask you to answer as many questions as we can before we bring it to you. So that we're, kind of ready to go, and that, it's taken us some time, so, but that was within that time frame.
Okay. And fundraising items, I don't know, I was a kid, we sold magazines freshman year and that raised all of our funds. I don't think we did anything else after that.
Yeah.
So you talked about fundraising opportunity at the Mr. Wright's.
So-
Thing as well, whether
All kinds of ideas, but can't act on anyone yet. So Mr. Wright, its big purpose was raising money for charity, so I'm not going to take that away, right? Like last year, we raised $2,400 for Shooting for Pete, which is one of the guys' charities, the guy who knew well. So we could potentially ask businesses to match. Hey, we're gonna donate $2,400, any chance you can match? If I could get parent volunteers, we could do like a soup and sandwich dinner beforehand, raise a little bit of money that way. Part of Mr. Wright this year, because I needed more time to count money and tabulate results, we're having a Christmas tree decorating contest on stage. So the goal is to donate half of those to families in need, auction the other half off for a senior trip, if we can do a senior trip. Aside from that, World Strides does a grant program for families in need. It's not a ton of money, but it's something. They do payment plans. Again, we're kind of late in the game for that too, but yeah, I do have a concession stand booked for student council too, with the intent of that money going to whichever kids want to work to get the money, right? So.
then I'll ask, because this is a much smaller group than what has previously been done. This is the only thing we're looking for the senior trip then.
As of right now,
So there wouldn't be a brewer trip or any other small scale.
we talked a little bit small scale, like doing a Timber Rattlers game or something.
Yeah.
I guess, again, my perspective is just, I feel like most of these kids at some point could make it to a brewer game, but the DC in New York might be otherwise out of reach for some.
To your
As a
point, I think just having a balance, though, this can't happen right then. There's still something available, but that was my.
Because all spring
concern.
sports are gonna be in session, correct? By the date of the trip.
Shouldn't be any contests yet.
I'm pretty sure softball has another name. Like I'm already thinking my daughter
And we're supposed to have the cross overnight track meet too, but I would use that.
would. No, she, I'm just thinking of all the kids and trying to balance for them. I don't want them to lose out on a senior trip, but
Yeah, the earlier point is a good one too, and we had talked about that this could be something in addition to computer game, to Rattlers game, something like that we can still do. And the other conversation we had a couple of times is longevity of something like this. We wouldn't want this to be a one and done. We want this opportunity for future classes. It's a huge undertaking, especially with the short time frame. And I have to credit Mrs. Ruckup for taking a shot at it, because it is a ton of work. And there's a ton, it's not easy to take even 15, 20 kids, across the state, and they're high school seniors and stuff. So it's a huge undertaking and a big ask. But I also think the payoff is huge. And so it's an experience that kids may never have again, for a cost that no one could ever really afford. I mean, still, there's a cost there, right? But to be able to go to DC and see everything there, and to bring to life social studies, and then go as former English teacher to go see Broadway, you know, and see a show, that's, for many people, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And to bring that to some of our kids, to me is worth the shot.
I don't see any concern.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity, and this is something I'd love to see grow a bit more. I want to get the fundraising stuff solidified, so we can get everything who wants to go a chance.
Yeah.
I know for me growing up, this would have been, even with fundraising without priced out, it wouldn't have been too much for me, so. For this, I guess.
Those questions, like, what was the term used? Official handshakes or?
I think you got it. Awesome. Any other questions?
Will, just what you mentioned, you will send something out to the parents of the seniors then in regards to this,
If
my
I,
information?
if I have the green light to do that, yes, probably tomorrow. It's a little bit of a time crunch, but. Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, then we'll jump right in.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. We'll go back to item B. So introduction of interim candidate for the middle school principal.
So my name is Colette Lachowski. I'm really happy to be here tonight. It has been a whirlwind of 3 days, 3 official days. It's really sweet when staff are like, oh, I'm so glad you came back today. It's great. Like, am I missing something? No, it's been wonderful. Everyone has been so welcoming. You know, even the parents that come into the office have been great to shake hands with. The kids are amazing. The staff is amazing. Sarah's been helping me a lot. I really appreciate that. A little bit of background about me. Currently I live in West of Here. We moved to West of Here from Seymour, Wisconsin. Some Seymour people in the room right now, so I just want to shout out that. But yeah, I grew up in Seymour. My educational journey has been really unique and different, and it's not something I would have ever planned for it to be this way, but I'm really thankful for all the experiences that I have. I started off as a classroom teacher in Ashwaubenon. I did some leadership opportunities in terms of reading specialist and interventionist and coaching. And then I was offered a position at Concordia University where I taught teachers for their 316 and 17 reading license. I really enjoyed that as well. And then I got this really brave notion to go into administration. And I started off in Seymour, actually, in my hometown. I started off as a high school associate principal and was exposed to things that I never knew even existed as an administrator. But I had some great people to guide me along. And then afterward, I was asked to be the head principal at Seymour Middle School. And so I was there for 4 years as well. And that was a great experience. Then I went to my alma mater, St. Norbert College, and did some work there. And loved working with the student teachers and creating those placements and working with other administrators. And then I was asked to work for a publishing company, a national publishing company, and that was fantastic. I was able to help teachers and administrators, and I was creating resources for them, implementation guides. So that was a great experience too. And that world is changing out there, but I'm so glad for the experience. And so now this new season, right, you need help, and I think this is a great fit, and so I'm really excited. But I have lots to learn. I'm not going to lie to you. I am trying to learn names and faces and kids and who's related and how this all works. So
Everyone is.
But I just want you to know that I'm really thankful to be here. I'm honored to be here, and I feel very welcomed. And I have only positive things to say about your community. So thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. All right. Next is technology audit presentation, part 3. If you missed part 2 and 1, cliff notes on them all.
Or seeing some interesting things.
They were very exciting, and if you missed
Pass
those,
it all the way
so.
down, or am I taking it?
As continuing on with this as far as we go, I appreciate the opportunity to do this. This is 3 of 4, so you don't have too many more of these, as you're almost done. So we're getting there, okay? So back in July 2025, this is about where we were in that process of this audit that we've been doing. I would say now we've made some significant gains and we are moving closer towards the end here to the next couple of days. And the next couple of meetings here will be kind of paramount in how we get to number 5, I guess, right? So that's part of what today's about. Just to recap again, just trying to help people understand and see some of these icons. There are all the different things that Tech Services does, from the closet to the people, everything in between. Recap from the last time, we talked about core switch replacements. We talked about network access control, physical, and then also cybersecurity. So quick updates on those. The core switches have been replaced. That's going well. Network access control, we had a good discussion about that. We've been able to, thanks to Dan and Jim, we've been able to move some things around, and so we've been able to afford that project right now operational, which is really nice. So that will be, there's a PO out for it, and we are now in the process of organizing that. So we'll have much stronger network security as a result of that. Partnered with CC7, Aaron's not here right now, but they've done a really good job with certain things with cybersecurity and taking care of that. But there's a big hole in the center, which is our physical security, which really needs some love. And so really what it all comes down to after we've gotten some of these audit parts back is looking at budget sustainability and also reliability. And so that's really the only thing that's on the list today because it impacts everything else that we've discovered as we go. So taking a little bit of time to look at the National Center for Education Statistics that comes from the U.S. Department of Education. And basically what's there is they provide you the revenue from school districts. And so I've tried to take some of the like school districts around us, very similar sizes, similar demographics, things like that, and take a look at their annual revenue, and then also look at what the recommended technology budget would be. A lot of the industry standards, about 3% of your revenue would go to a budget that would be for IT. So if you look at, it's probably hard to see it from there, but the Wrightstown one, we are right near the bottom as far as the recommended, and a couple of highlights. So our student count, we're slightly higher than those all around us that are like us, right? As far as student count, not much, but a little bit. Our annual revenue right now is also lower than the average. Our recommended tech budget is then lower than the average, and then also the amount that we've actually been typically spending, or at least been allotted, is about $87,461 lower than what the recommended will be. So we haven't been spending the recommended amount recently, right? And so that's kind of where we are as far as the trajectory of what's around us and kind of relativity, I guess, so to speak. And Jim has some other things to share.
So I'm passing this down and Dan's passing down the other way. So over the last couple of months, you hear recurring themes. You hear different things. And so a week or so ago, I said to Corey and to Chris, what's your top 5? What's your top 5, 6 things that you need to get done like yesterday? Things that are using those C words: critical, catastrophe. We would be in a world of hurt if they would go down, and we would have potentially a lot of egg on our face if they didn't get fixed. And so we met with, Dan and I met with both Corey and Chris at different times, and they came up with their list. So on the left-hand side of the sheet that you see are the projects that they came up with. So the door access and camera replacement, interactive panels, and the Fieldhouse AV replacement, health room technology replacement, both phone system. In just a minute, Corey's going to go into more detail on those things. But generally speaking, when you look at these things, when we talk about critical, catastrophic, egg in our face, we're talking about safety and security of kids. We're talking about teaching and learning, and really not putting ourselves in a position where our teaching and learning is suffering greatly because of things that aren't in front of them. The field house, egg in the face, if that goes out, and if it goes out on its own and we don't have a plan to fix it, it could be a week or two minimally before we get it back up. And that would not be a good look. The health room technology, I mean, our community wellness center, they're using that room all the time. And they go up there and have sketch technology when they're in there. It's just not really a good look for us. And it does need to be replaced. It's not like it's being abused and not used correctly. It's just worn out. And the phone system, we got a little hit by the Mitel phone system saying we're not going to support these things anymore come the end of December. And so if something breaks down, you're on your own. And if they break down and you're on your own and we have to do it, it's going to take a week or two again to get phones up. And we just can't be in that position that we would be without phones for a week or two during the school year. That would just be terrible, I would think. And then in the B&G, we knew we needed to do the track this summer. That I think you've all heard of that before. A rooftop handler on top of the elementary school here is the oldest one we have. The JV softball fence and the dugouts for the JV softball, that has been something that's been hanging out there for a while. And for a lot of practical reasons, it just needs to get done. We have middle school and high school carpeting that on its own is not going to get done. It's been talked about. It's worn out. It just needs to be replaced. HVAC control systems, he'll go into that more in-depthly because he knows it better than I do, but those switches need to be replaced. So with that, you see a total amount, which is, it's a big number, right? Because simply from 2020 on, things were just put on hold. You know, after the referendum passed, everybody said, we're just going to put things on hold. We're going to put things on hold. And these things didn't get done. So the bright side of that is that's why you have the money left in your fund balances, because things weren't, you know, taken care of on a year-to-year basis, right? So the good and bad. So now the good part is if we look at our fund, our fund balances in Fund 80, Fund 46, Fund 10, and Fund 50, you can see them color-coded. And this is what we would recommend on how to get these things done in a timely fashion. And a timely fashion means probably somewhere between a month to 9 months to get these things done. And fortunately, because these are things due out of fund balance, we don't have to worry about that. Oh, it's got to be done by the end of the year, June 30th. No, these things can get done on their own timeline and not have to worry about that. So if you look at Fund 80, those are the things that's the community service fund. So these are things that are going to be relative to the community, the softball fence, the baseball fence. We use it March, April, May. The community uses it June, July, and August, September. Youth baseball backstop is totally community. Dugouts, again, same as I just said, the track, it's open all year round. You know, when there's no snow on the ground, it's open for them to be using. So they use it just as much as we do. And like we already said, the health room is something that is used by the wellness center community people all the time, probably more than we do. And the field house, of course, we use it during the school year, but on the weekends, at nights, in the summer, we have a lot of community use in our field house. So that makes sense to take that amount of money out of there, along with the deficit spending that you already approved. We would be spending that 421 out of Fund 80. That still would leave us a balance of $341,000. So it's still a very nice balance to have in there. We are not draining that down to, you know, like, wow, that's pretty low. No, it's still in very good shape. Fund 46 is that other way of funding money at the end of the year that you have left. You can put it into Fund 10 fund balance, or you can put it in Fund 46. 46 has to be used for buildings and grounds type things. So these things definitely fit right into that. So we would be using 845,000 of the 1.15 million. So there still would be over $300,000 left in Fund 46, which of course is a decent amount. So obviously that would be something we'd want to replenish to get it back up over the years, but it certainly gives us a cushion. Fund 10, you can see the little number on the right, the 30.51%. So we're at 38.48% right now on the top numbers. If we used 1,185,000, we would still have a balance of $5,513,942, which we attribute about 4 million to short-term borrowing. So we're well able to spend that and still have a very healthy cushion, still over 30%, which most school districts would be very envious of. So that's great. And then Fund 50 is your food service. And so some of these things, the HVAC, the door access, the phone systems, obviously have to do with kitchens. We have to have a little bit more emphasis in those areas because of kitchen things. So we feel that we can take some of the money out of there. They have 381,000 in their fund balance, and if we took 100, they'd still have 281,000. Talked to Katie today. There's nothing on the horizon for her to have a big ticket item. There's no freezers, there's no coolers, there's nothing that is striking her. So I am going to predict the job that she does is amazing, and she's going to continue to turn a profit in that area. And so I'm not worried at all about that. So in essence, those 4 fund balances would pay for these projects and still leave you in very good shape financially. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Corey to go over his IT things, and then Chris can go over his B&G things for a little bit more in-depthness, and then you can ask questions.
All right, thank you. So I brought up door access and cameras before, but this is now a little bit more detailed. So long and short of it is right now we have basically 3 security systems that are completely independent from each other. We have visitor management, door access, and camera systems. All are completely separate systems, all require a lot of individual maintenance. Quick statistic for you, we just started a help desk about 8 days ago, and in 8 days, we've had 8 tickets on the doors. We've been able to resolve 6 of those tickets, and some of them have taken over 3 days to solve because they don't have easy solutions. There's 2 people that are in our department. So with that level of it, it's nearly a daily thing. That does not include every morning that we wake up and we have monitors going on each of those or all of those cameras, those 182 that are there, and at least one of them goes down in the middle of the night every day. And so we start the day by trying to figure out which one it is and why it went down. Just this morning, and I'll stop with anecdotes shortly, one of the things that we had was that we had a door that was propped open. That door did not have any contact closures that were functioning at the moment, and the camera that was there cut out during the time period that the door got propped open. So then it was left open for a period of time that it shouldn't have been. And we don't have to, it doesn't have to work like that, right? It's just a reliability issue, and it continues to happen that way. So some of the details are we have 182 cameras in the district. This project would replace all of those cameras. It would integrate all of the 42 doors that we currently have that have door access. It would place contact closures, which are basically sensors. It would replace those at the middle school and high school for any exterior doors. They are currently here at the elementary school, but again, they're not co-located with camera, visitor management system, and the notifications of those are very challenging to receive with the current software and setup that they have. So we have the right hardware in place essentially at the elementary school for a lot of that, but not necessarily the right system to interact with that hardware. This would cover, we're hoping there's the hope is 10 years of licensing. At a very minimum, it would cover five years of licensing throughout for all of the things that we've just talked about up there. It would cover 10 years of warranty on all of those cameras that are there. It also bakes in a disaster recovery mitigation, which is something we do not have at the moment right now. So we have one NVI server, and we do not have the appropriate backups for that. We could store that here. That is a whole different expensive infrastructure process if we want to have that. But right now, we don't currently back up any of the camera data, just simply because of its volume and the cost in doing so at the moment, right? This would include dynamic mapping, which is a way in which you literally can follow an individual around the organization and watch on a map if you need to, and particularly in those situations where you would be having some challenge with an intruder that you would want to be able to interact with, that you would want to be able to try to find, right? And so it is much more, it's much more in the situation where you would be able to respond to a catastrophic event in a way that would be helpful, rather than a way that you would reflect on it a few days later to try to find out what happened, if you get what I'm saying. So this would also include in-person training for all the administrative staff. So that would be not over Zoom. It would be right here in person for all of those admin staff to learn how to use these particular things, and including the IT staff and anybody else that would help us. It would include secure mobile access because we have one principal a lot of times in each building, and those people have to walk around and be in other places. So sitting at a desk trying to look at their camera system is challenging. The part that's difficult with secure mobile access is we do have mobile access right now, and because this is being required, I don't want to say too many things because I don't want to get attacked. I'll help people understand the insecurities that are there right now. But they're not good. So in order for us to offer that to our principals at the moment, we have to make a very significant compromise. That is not a really great place to be in right now. I want them to be able to do what they can, to be able to support teachers and discipline and that kind of thing. I also don't want us to wake up one morning and have been ransomed because we didn't do the right thing on the security side of our school district, right? So we're in a tough spot with that part. This also integrates the visitor management system, which has some significant benefits in looking at if we have notifications from law enforcement, county law enforcement, any kind of thing like that, that kind of says, you need to watch out for these particular individuals in your area. And then we have opportunities to be able to tie in the visitor management to the rest of the security system and be able to actually respond to those situations a lot more effectively than we can right now. We really, we're doing the best we can with what we have, and I think it's been helpful in a lot of ways. It's really great that we've had the support in the past. At the same time, the landscape of this is changing, the expectations are changing, and so it would be a valuable thing here to try to get us to this point where we could get this installation to happen, train our people, and then really not have to talk too much about this for another decade. That would be the idea at this point. Timeline on this one, because it involves so many endpoints, this would be a long project. Out of any of the ones that are in here, this is the longest. We would have about 1 to 2 months of project finalization and planning. That's just making sure that we've had opportunities to talk very clearly with everybody in the administration team, the student, the school resource officer, making sure that we're getting all the kind of ducks in a row, making sure all the places that we have are accurate. About 3 to 6 months of installation, and the reason for that is because of all those contact closures that need to go to those exterior doors. That's running wire to every single door, that's running it back to central systems and that kind of thing. It could take quite a while to do that, right? And then probably 1 to 2 weeks of actual cutover time so that we're in the process of not having anything where we don't want to have a downtime at all. So there's going to be a period of time where recording is going to happen on one system and on another system simultaneously, and we would want to try to take that and do it at a time where we have less footprint in here and less risk of having an issue. So probably a July timeframe of being able to cut over and that kind of thing, make sure that we're in a good place. So. Okay.
Are we allowed
I was
to?
going to say, yeah. Do you want to do questions for each one, or how would you?
I'd prefer you go through all
Okay.
4 of them.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, we could be.
Over here a while. Okay, that's the biggest one. Okay, AV upgrades. This one should be pretty fast. Okay, so what you're looking at right there is a picture of the back end of the PA system, which is sitting next to a boombox, which is sitting next to a bunch of supplies and a door that kids have access to on a regular basis. And so what that is about 20 years old. Around 25 years old in truth. And so that system right now is really on its last leg. It's using all mostly analog products from right now. A lot of the stuff is rusted out. We've literally had to solder portions of it to make it function again. It's what we use for graduation and instruction, and it's also something that we don't have currently tied into our systems right now for emergency notification. So if they're playing music super loudly through it and there is an emergency, they might not know because it doesn't tie into that system right now. So everybody will be fine except for the people in the gym who didn't realize that happened, right? So in this case, what this installation would do was that it would replace that system. It would move that system into a more secure location. It would update that, provide digital capability. It would provide much greater coverage in the gyms so that they're not all coming from one central, like tiny location in the center, space those out. And then it also ensures our ADA compliance and that we have sufficient coverage. It would give us more wireless microphone coverage in this case. And then it also mitigates tampering, cooling issues that we have in this particular situation too, because there's really not it's not a place that really has that. In the health room, I didn't make a separate picture of that, but in the health room, it gets used very regularly. So we're up there a lot of times after school. We have to be, one of us has to be available just in case someone's in the health room at this point and they need to project or they need to use the sound. Didn't take pictures of that, but it's currently in a closet right now. It's off to the side. There's absolutely no fan in it, so it overheats on a regular basis. That heat has caused some issues with the hardware over the last number of years. So this would include a new laser projector, it would include, again, tie into emergency notification in the current speaker system up there. This would be a week of closure for the gym. That will be challenging, but they're going to need to be in every square inch of that gym to be able to get into this. And then roughly a 2-day closure of that health community room in order to get that installation complete. Interactive flat panels. So right now, this proposal would have about 120 interactive flat panels in there. We would increase the size of those interactive flat panels in every location. Right now, they're 65 inches, and so 75 inches gets us much closer to the industry recommendation. We chose 65 inches in the past. That's too small for a 30 by 30 classroom, so students have a difficult time reading or seeing the text or anything that they're supposed to be learning from in that section. And so they have to squint and look, and there's actually quite a bit of research on it. We would also take these off the walls and put them on 80 carts at this point. 80 is less than 120 because they're already on carts in the elementary school. What that allows us to do is create a lot more flexibility in the classroom. Teacher gets to decide how close they want it to students, what wall it's on, all of that kind of stuff. And then when teachers change, you can do that too. Attach power supplies to the back. We can move those around, and then it integrates with all their current devices right now. We look at about 1 to 2 months of staff input for this one, just to make sure we get the right features and things like that we're looking for. Piloting that kind of maybe a couple of options in the spring of 26, probably early spring, and then about 2 months of installation because we have to build every single part. We have to take down the old ones. You kind of get the idea. It's quite a bit of work in that way, but we feel like we could get this done over the course of the summer and be ready for training for the next in-service time this fall. Last project that's in here is the phone system. And so right now we use Mitel My Voice. When these were originally put out there, Mitel was talking about having these available until 2029. A lot of places went into it, and they are now stopping that support as of the end of 2025. So on 1/1/2026, they will no longer sell licenses for this. There will be no new design support, and they've already stopped selling all the hardware for it. They're not promising security patches. They're not promising updates to any of these things within the phone system, and the phone system right now integrates with our emergency notification system. It would integrate with our PAs and that kind of thing as well. So we really rely on that phone system for more than just calls. We rely on it for a variety of other things. It is currently, helps us with our bell system, our paging, all of the above, right? So they've projected some limited technical support through 2029. Nobody's really sure exactly what that means. But most people in the industry are saying it's a good time to switch because that's going to be very difficult for you to get support. You should start looking for a system as soon as you can, which would require basically replacing all those phones and going through a whole system that way. So estimated timeline of that, again, about 1 month of planning, making sure that we have all of the things that the phone system touches, integrated with whatever new phone system we choose, about 2 months of configuration and testing to make sure that works. We would not take down the new phone system at that time. We would be able to run both of them concurrently for a period. And then about a week of cutover, which is once we finally get all of these cut over to our new phone system, we would be able to distribute phones out to all of the classrooms, and that'll be the kind of the longest part of it, is just trying to get those switched over really quickly once we get the outside phone system coming into the internal. So, all right.
Okay, we'll take a break. Chris, you're gonna have a tough act to follow, but we'll take questions about the IT things.
Phones, training for staff and stuff included?
Yeah. So right now in that number, there is not training included for staff.
Yep.
My hope is that because we have gotten training and we would have training for a number of these other areas, that we would be able to provide some good internal training for staff by the time that it comes around. I do think I've been looking into a variety of different phone systems. I think we can get something that's quite similar to what we have. I wouldn't require a lot from them. There was definitely going to be some training that is required. And so just like we have now, I have a YouTube channel that shows people all kinds of stuff and I frequently ask questions. That's pretty much what I would decide to do with this, the time to build it, and then try to make sure that we carve out some time to make sure staff can get all the right things in place for it before it starts. So
then the security items, door access, and the camera placements, you got vendor already kind of identified.
Well, yeah. So we have Heartland's been doing a lot of this for us. They have stepped up in a lot of ways to help us with it. So that's right now, I would say, the preferential vendor at the moment for this. And so I say the answer to that is yes at this time. So.
Is that all handled on-prem or is that cloud-based?
So it is cloud-based. So the system we're looking at, and that's been where these numbers come from is Verkada. And so, that is, it's cloud-based and so.
Sounds good. And 5 to 10 years of licensing, that's a term license then, and that's a yearly subscription based or?
So what happens is that in that particular price, if you end up buying those licenses up front, then that is baked into that price right there. So if we ended up being able to get the 10 years of it, it would be baked into this price. We're right around that right now, and I'm trying to work with them to see if it's possible we can get the 10-year part of it in this one. And then there's no recurring fee for the 10 years. You would have to save up in that 10 years for licensing if you want to do that. Likely 10 years is going to be stretch on the cameras anyway. Most likely at a decade is when you're really starting to look at replacing those to a degree already. The industry changes quickly, so 10-year-old cameras in 2035 will probably not look awesome, as they do in 2020.
Yeah, I know working with my group and software, like that, their annual cost increase for licensing, things like that.
Correct.
You can put that further, it's a huge step.
That's partly what I'm trying to do with the phone system is to keep the things that should be on-prem, the things that we can manage on-prem, because they are usually a little bit less expensive, but they generally require a lot more hands
you need
to
the
repair.
resources.
You do need the resources. So being that we are very lean as far as an IT department, we have to try to figure out where are the areas that we continue to answer 8 tickets a week on door access and do this with cameras every day. I don't think we can sustain that, but we can sustain some help with the phone system if there's one that can go away, right? And so another system that we can try to have to rely upon.
Question on the interactive panel replacements then. So we currently have a 65. When did we get the 65 inch one?
So the average is about 5 to 7 years. It's all over the board. Right?
Okay.
So the average is 5 to 7. Some of them are older than 7 years old, and some of them are only 3 years old, because it depends upon when that. I wish I had knowledge of how it was planned, right?
Okay.
So I have put a few in there in certain places. So we've had quite a few of them fail at this point. So what we've, like, again, anecdotes, I've taken some from the wellness center I found, had a few of them, and these are very instructional devices. And the wellness center just thought, like, they were very nice to us. And they're like, oh, I thought those were just TVs. And they're actually really nice interactive flat panels. Could I take those and replace them with TVs? And then I could put those in classrooms. Would that be okay? Like, sure. So we've been doing things like that around to go like, oh, we found some more of them over here. Well, let's get that into a classroom because that teacher doesn't have one right now, or their touch broke, or their pens don't work, or their sound doesn't work any longer, and so they're pretty costly to repair. And so most of those in that 5 to 7 range we cannot get that same model any longer. And so it's just kind of a recycling of a variety of hodgepodge. What can we get at this point in time?
Okay. And then 75 inch going up. Is that the right size? Is it bigger, better?
I mean, I think it's a modest, it's a good range, I would say. It's pretty similar to what you would see in a lot of school districts. There's going to be debate from people who do this for a living to say, like, no, it should be bigger because the physics of this distance and all that kind of thing. But I think you see that very, very commonly in school districts. It's a little less common to see 65, especially in secondary education, where your classes are way bigger. That is a very small screen in secondary education. I've very rarely seen that as a common practice.
Corey, what is the size of these?
These are 65 here. So, yeah.
Are you looking at BenQs again, or are you?
So right now, I
Doing an audit
don't want to
or
say it's
something?
up in the air, but I mean, this is a pretty competitive market. And so part of what I want to do right now, the quote to me, ViewSonic has been a pretty solid contender in this case because they've been pretty good as far as the price point and also the features that we actually use. So if you put them like for like, BenQ has lots of features. And if you look at what staff actually use and need for their instruction, they're a little low on what they actually require and want. But we end up paying a pretty high premium for what we get, even though we don't use most of the features that are there.
Dependability.
What's that?
For dependability for ViewSonic versus BenQ, even.
As far as I understand, yeah. So I mean, I look at West Superior, for example. That school district uses ViewSonic for a lot of their boards at this point in time.
Clever Touch.
So, and maybe it's East Superior.
Yeah.
One of them uses ViewSonic.
We don't
I'm
like
absolutely
what
positive. So I used Clever Touch when I was in. So I had Clever Touch boards in every place, but the same kind of when I was in O'Connell Falls. So again, to do this the way that I think would be positive would be to get some staff input, get a couple of boards on site, and then take a little bit of feedback and then move forward that way. And if we have a budget, we'll stay within that budget, you know.
Yeah, I'd encourage it, maybe even if the high school, something like that, try to earn bigger size, so just need to.
Okay. The one thing I'll say is that if you do go bigger, the screen size is the one thing that causes the price to soar very quickly, right? Not the speaker size, not the feature set, it's the glass and the screen and its responsiveness. So I can try, for sure.
Yeah, I think these are great. I'll let other people ask questions as well, but
Yeah.
definitely seems well needed. The security of the district should be a very high priority, and for sure. I see doors pop all the time, and I could not imagine, you know, we focus on single pane of glass. I can imagine having multiple different systems you're trying to work through, prepare for your security and managing everything right.
It's not easy to do.
Yeah, I agree. So some of the stuff that you're talking about, I would assume we're beyond end of life for some of this stuff.
Some of them are beyond end of life. I would say our cameras are definitely beyond end of life. Our door access system is, you know, it depends on what you're talking about within there, but some of our controllers are even at end of life. You know, there's a lot of things within that system that are end of life. The reason that some of these panels cannot be repaired or replaced is because they're also end of life. And there's a kind of a hodgepodge smattering of those at this point in time. The AV system in the gym has been end of life for a long time. So that keeps breathing even though it's in the grave. So that one is well needed 5 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, and you look at, I mean, the upfront cost here is, if people are gonna see that number and they're thinking, whoa, right? But I think the fact of the matter is we've been doing so much with so little for a long time that it just kind of leads to that. Can you talk a little bit about end of life stuff and the costs basically incurring if we don't do this stuff? So what's the future impact of the cost if we weren't to do this now?
Yeah.
Because I imagine it would be significantly higher.
It's a pretty good segue just into this slide right here. I'm going to first of all tell you that the cost is unpredictable, right? And the fact that it's unpredictable causes you to have a really a big challenge in how you budget, right? So in this particular thing, since I've been here, which has not been a year yet, in that particular time, there's been two products that we absolutely rely on, our core switches and our core UPS. If you were here on the board at the time, you saw this presentation where we were very fortunate that we were able to respond to this quickly and make sure that nothing started on fire and that we didn't have a school cancellation or closure and all that kind of thing. So that's battery acid that's being mitigated at that point in time, and Matt pulling that out of there in our core switch because the lead in that expanded to the point where it was starting to cause a real problem, right? That is something that's E-ratable, and we get it as a 60% discount if we pay for it within that window. When it explodes and you need it to run your organization, you can't wait for the window and wait for the reimbursement, so you pay for the entire thing in full. Very shortly after that, our core switches were also at end of life, and they were getting to a point where that all of our internet runs through that, and we literally could not call anyone for support if we had an issue with that, and we will have no internet of any kind if those have an issue. So we chose to replace those before we waited for E-rate because that would be absolutely catastrophic, and we could be out for days and days and literally not have any, I mean, no internet, nothing. Right. And so in that situation alone, we paid $96,000 for those two things. We could have paid, and we lost out on $57,000 of reimbursements in both of those items. Plus, it took our entire IT team away from anything strategic that we were doing to make sure that we didn't shut the school district down, all of these kinds of things, just to maintain just internet, just regular, just basic internet at that point in time. Most people don't know that we were doing that, and that's good. But if you kind of look at trying to use the two people in your department for probably better resources for things that are a bit more innovative, try to move your district forward rather than keep it from just shutting down. You get those. So, I guess that's my best to say is that in each of these things, it all depends on which part fails, right? And it can be really, really catastrophic for many of them, or it can be individual situations that we have issues with.
So my next question is, I'll jump to the phones real quick, and then I'll ask my last question, which pertains more to you. But from the phones situation, is there a possibility to partner with any other districts and get some kind of like bulk pricing or anything like that, or we have other districts that are kind of within that same situation?
I could certainly look. I have some connections with that. What usually my experience with it when I've tried this type of thing in the past is that usually if you're going to replace the system itself, there's a threshold for that bulk pricing. And so those thresholds are usually, like, we're a big enough size that if we replaced all of them at once, we would usually hit a decent threshold. Then it usually goes really high, where you're like, you need 40 buildings to get to that. You have to get what I'm saying. So it's like, if we just did the elementary school, we'd be at one threshold. If we did all three of our buildings, we would kind of hit the sweet spot. And then you would need a lot of school districts, or you'd need to partner with like Green Bay area public schools, because they have, 38 to 40 foundations or something like that. So it kind of, it's not, I'm willing to try it if that's something that you want to do, but I think what we would be doing by replacing the whole thing, instead of doing chunk by chunk or school by school and trying to maintain two systems or something, is that we would get the best pricing we can through having a mass situation here.
That makes sense to me. And then the last thing is, you've given us timing on all of this stuff. What's the realistic timing of that, considering the capacity is 2 people?
Well, I think we can do this. And so there's some things, if I can look at each of these, I won't explain each project, but I think in planning this, the field house replacement, the house room replacement, that would largely be subcontracted work. And so that would not take a whole lot from us. And part of the reason for that subcontracted work too, is just to make sure that we can still operate normally, and we can use the two of us to keep our normal operations going. Once that's completed, it's my objective to be able to learn those systems and be able to train the people around who are actually going to be able to teach other people how to use those systems, right? So at the high school level, Eric and Craig need to learn that so that they can teach coaches and teachers and that kind of thing. And so, the rest of them, I'd say, we've talked about having some help with building the carts. Some of these things don't require a significant amount of technical knowledge. It requires the ability to run a drill and read a couple of directions, right? And so there's situations where we do have some staffing that we can tap into to go, hey, when we get this shipment in this next week, we're going to need a few all hands on deck here, to get a few of these things built. And I think if we are careful about it and we articulate the need and we plan together as a team, I think we'll be in a good spot to be able to finish these. And so as long as we know they're coming, much easier than trying to replace stuff that's broken down and then cancel everything to do it.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll just say is, looking at this, I think we're in a very fortunate position. And I know that we always say we want to do more with less, but I don't like to get into that, especially with technology. No offense to buildings and grounds, because that's also very, very important too. But and it's kind of in the same way, but I just know more about the technology that unpredictability of that next cost, if you don't fix it now, is just going to end up killing us. So the fact, I appreciate the work that all of you have done here as far as putting this together and saying, where can we pull money? How have we done well in the past in saving so that we can do this and still be in a good financial position? So I think this is great.
I just have one question about, obviously, the short term. I don't think you're going to get a lot of disagreement in your need, the postponement of the needs not being met, and the need to spend some money and get some things up in place. Is there a beyond that kind of plan as far as budgeting, and maybe that's a different subject, but just thinking ahead, like, is there a way to get you more of a budget to keep this instead of being reactive, being proactive?
Do you want to answer that? I mean, I can answer it, but I don't want to. I don't want to step on your toes there. So,
Well, I think you should go first.
okay.
And we'll see.
So one of the things that Jim and Dan are probably very sick of my spreadsheet that it projects out as many costs as possible over the course of 10 years with a 3% inflation rate for every single thing that we do over that period of time. So in trying to figure out how we were going to cover these things, I have all of those things in that 10-year projection, and I was trying to get to all of them in some way, shape, or form with the current budgetary allotment, right? That's been extremely difficult, and that's part of the reason why I brought up some of the other school districts and that kind of relativity, because it's not really possible to do that. Some of them, though, don't need to have annual costs, right? Some of them are things where you do a larger amount, like a phone system. You get a better pricing for that. You get better labor pricing for it because it's all happening in one fell swoop, right? And you get a much better price for that. So if you were to divide it out over 10 years, you're actually in a pretty good spot, right? And so what this will do for me is that It will be able to help me figure out how can I take what we've been currently using, which is under the recommended amount, and then maximize that because we actually have solved some of the much larger issues that are very, very difficult to do in just a normal yearly operating budget, if that makes sense. So I think it sets us up for a much better situation over the next decade to be able to make sure that we're being able to use the dollars that we currently have and stay within that sustainable budget that we've been operating within. Hopefully that answers the question.
Corey, I was thinking the exact, like, we're fixing a lot of problems right now, so I totally understand that, but let's get to a place where we're replacing before we're fixing. Start figuring out a cycle and, you know, 1 year's Chromebooks, 1 year's the boards, 1 year's, and let's just stay on top of things and
That's
not
where
fall behind again.
That's where I'd like to be. So honestly, we have 7 switches, edge switches right now that need to be replaced operationally. I mean, I have those, something that's going to be able to be used with E-rate. If that amount of money that we are trying to use to replace those competes with this amount of money, I need to choose between, do the switches get replaced or do we replace some of these other critical things? They're all really important to our operations. Which one do we do? Now that's a hard situation. I'm fine to make those difficult decisions. At the same time, if you don't start to invest in those areas, you start to become where they're so critical, the things that you're not choosing, that you have situations like the ones you've seen up here, and that's probably not a place we want to be.
So that was a great answer. So from the 30,000 foot view, instead of the boots on the ground, or the 5,000 foot view, is we're playing catch up, right? We're playing a little bit of catch up. And the good news is, like I said before, is this is not increasing taxes. This isn't taking more money or doing something with our budget. This is something because of the fiscal responsibility that you've shown as a district previous to this, that allows you to do this without affecting the operational budget that you just passed. So that's excellent news, right? That's excellent news. It gets us to catch up. So now back to your question, which is awesome, by the way. Now, how do we do this so we don't get back here again, right? So we have to look at operationally when we're building budgets is prioritizing where we want to put our time and energies. And that's going to be a difficult conversation for the spring for everybody, right? You know, I use the old emphasis syllable thing, right? You got to put the right emphasis on the right syllable, right? And sometimes we don't. And so we have to look at that and ask some hard questions about traditionally, well, this is what we do in Wrightstown. Well, why? Because this is what we do in Wrightstown. This is the Wrightstown way. And there's a lot of great to that, but sometimes you got to recalibrate what's the Wrightstown way. You know, the new normal that we keep on talking about, right? You can't go backwards. You're going to create a new normal. And so within that context, we have to put more money in the technology budget, and we're just going to have to make it work where we're going to have to massage somewhere else. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, especially with reduced budgets every year, but we have to make that a commitment. And we just heard you as a board say, you need to do that. So we will. And finally, I would say, and I speak, how do I say this? It's difficult conversation sometimes. And we don't always all agree. I know that's hard to believe, right? But we don't always all agree. So we get passionate about these things. We get passionate about student learning. We get passionate about getting, you know, good technology in front of people. We get, you know, passionate about having, you know, buildings and grounds that are up to speed. But we don't have all the money in the world to be able to do these things. So I give everybody in this room credit for your willingness to say, okay, we've got to do this for the kids. We just got to do this for the kids. The panels, we got to do that for the kids. We got to fix the air handling. We got to make the place safe. We have to have phones. We don't want to have egg on our face. We have to have a speaker system. So, you know, the senior graduation is in a flop, you know, right? So with that, I don't want to take all the time away, but Kristen's got things that are probably easier to explain. But Chris, would you mind walking through yours?
I don't have a fancy presentation like this, but I'll do my best here. First thing on the list here is the high school track refurbishment. The average life of a track before it needs to be refurbished is 8 to 10 years. We're at 10 years. So we had somebody come on, take a look at it. The granulars are coming off, the paint is faded. Obviously, you see the price, $110,000 to refurbish that track. They come and they fix the surface, repaint it, put a product down, reseal it. We're good for another 8 to 10 years. If we don't do this, we're talking $750,000 to tear the whole track up and start again. So it's one of those things that we're really don't have a whole lot of options when it comes to the track. It's got to be done or it's going to cost us a lot more money. So we're looking at doing that. Elementary school rooftop air handler. There's a unit on this building that was looked at back during the site study here in 2018. It was recommended to be replaced. It wasn't replaced as part of the referendum. It's an original air handler from 1972. So it is way beyond its life cycle. The condensing unit up on the roof that ties in with that has 2 compressors on it. One compressor is completely dead. It's leaked. It's got R22 refrigerant in it. Can't use that anymore. The other compressor in there, parts have failed, not available anymore. So right now we've got it basically rigged that it got us through this season here, but it's on borrowed time. If it goes down, it's down. There's not a thing that we're gonna be able to do about it at that point. So again, 1972, I think we got our life out of it. We really got it. Talk a little bit about JV softball fence and JV softball dugouts. I'll kind of talk about those together. The JV softball field is the only field we have out there that does not have dugouts and does not have outfield fence. It should have, like the other ones. One of the things that you got to look at as well is Title IX. What do we have for the guys that we don't have for the girls? So it should have a dugout. It should have a fence. We have a temporary fence out there. You look at it. It's not right. It really isn't. They deserve better. So those are one of the things we want to look at doing there. Middle school and high school carpeting. No carpeting has been replaced in those 2 buildings since 2020. The carpeting at the high school is 25 years old. We clean it. It hardly even seems like it comes clean. We've over 4 or 5 times and it comes up just as black as when we started. We're fighting a losing battle. If the glue is let up from the floor, we've got trip hazards. We've got holes that need to be patched. I don't think we can stretch that much longer. Some of the stuff in the middle school was done at the referendum. So there's not as much over there as there is at the high school. When we do clean that in the summer, it gets so wet and wrinkly, you can hardly walk across it, and it takes a month and a half to dry. Sometimes when the kids are coming back, it still has wrinkles in it. Safety hazard, people call and say, I got a trip hazard in my classroom. So again, I think that's, we probably got our life out of that one as well. HVAC control system. Now that's the high school. Again, it's 25 years old. We've stuck a lot of money. I was looking at it today, how much money we've stuck into that thing over the past 4 years. It's $1,000 here, $800 here, multiple times during the year because it's just old, 25 years old. We can't control that nearly like we can control anything here at the elementary school or the middle school. The technology is just so much further along right now when that system was put in. Again, that's a system that is not supported anymore. If things break, we can't get it. We just did our last update to that system. That is possible. So really, there's not much more that we can do with that when it's a constant battle. Teachers calling, hey, my room is really hot, my room is really cold. We just don't have the control system there that we really need to make it a comfortable building and an efficient building. Things run so much more efficiently here. Don't want to bore you with details, but if I need to program something for an event at the high school, let's face it, there's events all the time in that gym, the cafeteria. I have a very limited amount of controls. I can program 1 or 2 things and that's it. So there's times if we have an event for 3 hours, I have to run the thing almost all day just to keep those areas where they should be for that event. This building or the middle school with the new systems we have there, I could turn something on for 15 minutes if I wanted to. So if there's a Girl Scout meeting for an hour in the cafeteria, turn it on for them. It's not a big deal at all. So there's a lot of flexibility that way, and we can probably save some money in the long run. So
Backstop?
The backstop. There is a backstop on one of the youth baseball fields out here. Again, it's lived its life. The poles that are holding the backstop are rotted right through. It's been welded, it's been brazed, it's not safe. I would hate to have to explain why we knew that thing was damaged and it came down and damaged the building or hit a kid or something like that. It has to come down. So it either has to come down over and replace it, or it has to come down, there's gonna be nothing there. So it's used by the kids of the school district. Yeah, they may not play on Friday nights over there when a normal baseball game is, but they're on that thing all summer, and those are the kids that are gonna be playing high school one day. So I really feel it's something that we need to do for the kids. It's a major safety concern.
And Chris, you were telling me on the side, you're doing this for Kelly, because if Bill's standing behind that thing and gets hit by a ball.
Kelly too, Kelly too.
Kelly, oh boy, I dug myself a hole here. They get Kelly, and Kelly too. Okay.
I could die, Jim.
You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
You don't want me to have to miss a meeting because I got killed by.
No, I mean, but Bill came to the meeting, I wanted to get him like feeling like he meant to come.
Well,
So I'm sure you've seen it.
yes, I
Yes,
hope
it's-
Any questions for Chris?
I guess question for both of you is, a couple things is, do we have any opportunities, and I'm not saying we have to or not, are there opportunities to incorporate some of those or get resources from some of the classes that we have going on from high school for some of the project stuff? Or not? The other side would be, do we have a possibility for an intern or a co-op position for the summer, so frees up some of Corey's time, right? And then the other question I'd have is, anything that's getting replaced, is it worthwhile to piece and part out for those that aren't as fortunate as us to have those pieces and parts to be able to sell them? Not saying it's gonna be feasible, but just
Yeah,
something.
I don't
to
see
keep
that
in
on
mind.
my side.
Probably not on
Yeah.
yours. I mean, I don't know, somebody might want that 1972 there.
I would think that the only thing that could possibly be given to a less fortunate group, maybe might be some of those interactive panels.
That's the only thing I was
the
thinking right
boards.
now. There's nothing else
Yeah.
they're gonna want.
I mean, as we take them down, we could potentially look at, those 65 inches, but nowadays you go to Walmart, you can get one for $200 or something, so, and it's brand new and it's not 7 years old, but we certainly can look into that.
Try
We
something.
can possibly donate it to
Parochial schools.
the parochial schools, or, that's a great idea, so we can certainly look at that. And interim help, intern or interim help in the summer, that was one of the things that we talked about, getting some summer help, especially like to build those carts and things like that. We could potentially use some help there.
I mean, no promise, like your salary, but a little bit more than probably what we could have a high school kid to put.
No, I think,
Or together
yeah, I
for
think
it, so.
if we knew, especially if we knew at an earlier date, we could really actually get pretty strategic about how we're gonna get that help.
Over spring break, bring a kid into.
Just say the same
It is the
thing.
peer unified, by the way. It was Kurt's email. I was like, heck, I don't know what's wrong with the peer. Sorry.
I'll just say the same thing for buildings, the same way I feel about the technology stuff. I don't know as much about that stuff. But I would just say that, especially when you look at that track, right, 110,000 versus 750,000. An air handler that's lasted since 1972. I mean, we've done well, and for the fact that we can do this stuff and it's within our fund balance, I think it's well worth it. I don't have any issues with any of that stuff.
One question on the track, this the third time it's getting resurfaced?
I was told it'll be the first time it's been resurfaced.
Do we have a expectation of how many times we can resurface before we replace
That's
it?
a question. I can look into that.
I'm just curious, like, okay, we haven't resurfaced, so again, we'll start talking about future plans, like, what does that look like then? At some point, I'm gonna guess that you can only resurface so many times.
I would assume so too.
It's usually twice. 2 to 3 times where they kind of, you do the ground parts of it and redo the black, whatever you call that turf part. And then about every 20 years, you gotta dig it all up and replace all that stuff. So if you, this is only the first time you're doing it, you got a good 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, but in
before
20
that.
years and 10 years from now, it's completely different.
Exactly.
Completely different. Yeah, I think it's great.
Thank you both for all your time and work on this.
Question for Dan. So we have these fund balances, we're taking out of them. What do we need to do to help replenish them, and what's kind of the time frame for what we needed to get them back to where they are currently before we spend?
Sure. That's gonna be probably a long-term goal that we're gonna have to work on, you know, especially when we talk about, you know, Corey's budget as well, you know, I, as a former tech guy, I try to, anything that I have left over, because obviously you're gonna do salaries and benefits first when you look at the budget. We talked about the revenue limit, the budget limits that we have from the state and all that kind of stuff. Anything we have left over, I try to give as much as I can to technology and buildings and grounds, you know, because those are high needs and we know that there's a lot of things happening there. And we're also looking at, you know, curriculum resources and, you know, athletics has needs as well. And it's, as Jim said, it's about priorities, right? So we have to try to knock off the things that we can. You know, we're in a great position. Many districts aren't in our spot, you know, and they're going to referendums to make this happen. So we're in a great spot where we don't have to do that. You know, you'd hate to be in a spot where you ask for a referendum and then, you know, the community's gonna say, well, how come this didn't get done previously? So these are some things that we can knock off the list that we don't, you know, that we won't have to do later. It may be a goal that isn't going to get met, you know, given to the budget restraints in the state, and we get closer and closer to, you know, not having a balanced budget. But you know, my goal every year is to make sure that we have a balanced budget. So, you know, unless we do some deficit budgeting, you know, it's going to be difficult to build some of that stuff back up.
Is it worth it to consider, you know, some districts do like an audit system-wide of like what's coming, right? Like, here's where we are, this is the current status of our buildings, our grounds, our IT, our, you know, and that way, God forbid, we have to do a referendum, which might be something in the future of our board lives. Like, I think it's better if the community knows where we're at, right? Like, and project, it's not just dropped on like, oh, boom, here we are, we're gonna do a referendum for this, and this. Like, is that a doable thing now to set the standard of, hey, these are the things that we're looking at, these are the goals we want to meet, but this is how we may have to meet them. And I realize that's a discussion for another night after 2.5 hours, but you know, just something to think about going forward. Like, is that something as a board we should be looking at getting done, as some sort of audit to figure out what goals we need to meet in the next 1 to 5 years?
So the last time we did a facility study was 2018. And that was, you know, in preparation for the referendum in 2020. You know, so that study is now what, 8 years old, right? Okay. So, does it make sense to complete that within the next couple of years? Probably, to kind of at least see where you're at. You know, that's a priority from the board, you know, we'll work on making that happen.
So back to your question, efficiency, effectiveness, and energy savings and things like that. So you replace these things, you want to be more efficient, effective, and save some money. Okay, we all know that. That's what we try to do. We will save some money that way in the long run. 2 is, I go back to the emphasis syllable thing. You gotta prioritize correctly what you want to spend your money on. 3 is, we know that Fund 46 is going to be one of the areas of primary concern to put money in at the end of the year. If we have money, we need to put money back into Fund 46. Fund 10 is still very, very healthy. Fund 80 is still very healthy. Fund 50 is very healthy. Fund 46 is where we would target that for future things. And somewhere down the line in the next months, you know, we have a 10-year plan for technology. We have a 10-year, and you know what? Every 3 years it changes, right? But at least, you know, we know those things are coming. And we're trying to be strategic and thoughtful in the things that we're doing. For instance, like carpet at the middle school. I'm going to guesstimate, and I'm leaving, so then you can blame me when I'm gone. But I'm guesstimating that you're not going to build a new middle school in the foreseeable future because you put a lot of money in that building and it's a nice location. But there are things that need to get done, right? That gymnasium there is just, it's not suitable for a middle school. So at some point, you're going to look at possibly adding on to that building for the things that you're going to directly prioritize. And you're going to, you know, make it around. So putting carpet in there makes sense because you're going to still be there. If you weren't going to be there, putting carpet in there wouldn't make any sense, right? So they've been very strategic. All these people in here have been very strategic in what they've said. And we're trying to do what you're asking.
I can say I've been appreciative that the board, those of you that are here that voted for that, to have a technology audit. That's, to be honest, that's where a lot of this is coming from, to make sure that we don't have additional catastrophic things that occur, right? And so that's partly why the audit's taken so long, is because I'm trying to literally look at everything and then try to be able to figure out what are those priorities. So that's why we're kind of towards the end of it, where we're starting to get to the ask, you know.
So we will vote to approve this next meeting. Is that correct? That would be on the agenda for that to approve the next meeting.
Yes, because we don't. Go ahead.
When I'm assuming, just based on tonight's conversation, that would get approved. Assuming that does get approved, how quickly can this stuff begin?
So we would be similar to what we've seen earlier tonight. If you are receptive to this, which it seems like you are, and you see the need, we are going to start planning now even more intensely than we have, with the idea that this will be approved on the 19th. And of course, if it isn't, then we'll stop. But we are going to start more intensely planning on some of these things. And I believe we're looking at literally trying to get some things possibly done, like the AV in the gym over Christmas break, get the phones up and running and in place by Easter. Order the flat panels, get everything else in the spring, and all the doors and the things is going to take 3 to 9 months. So between now and let's say September, we would think that all these things would get done.
Okay.
Sure. Any other questions? All right, moving on to discussion of substitute teacher pay.
Yeah, this I just wanted to show you with these small boards, man, I can't see
I'm gonna make it very large here, so that's right. So then you can see 6 inches, right? So
so this is a sub pay for districts within CISA 7, and you know that goes, you know, a wide variety across the entire swath of CISA 7. So there's Wrightstown. Our daily rate is 140. If it's a long-term and they meet the criteria for a long-term sub, then it goes up to 165. So when we looked at this, it said, okay, what school districts are we competing for subs? We're probably not competing with Manitowoc, but we are competing with De Pere, Green Bay, West De Pere, Ashwaubenon, maybe Brilliant, but no, Two Rivers, Howard Swamico, probably not. Kewanee, no. So it's the De Pere, Green Bay, West De Pere, Ashwaubenon. And you look at that and you see 179, 182, 190, 193. So they're significantly higher. And what we're finding out, and we put an ad in the paper today, for substitutes and how to get registered and get up and running. And with Tanya has been working on that, and she's getting up to speed and getting some help there to try to build up that list. But what we find out is we hire a sub, and then that morning they call in, or the day before, and they say, nope, not going to come anymore because they get a sub job in West Pier for $42 more that day. And so they're jumping us and going to another school district. So we don't think that we have to be totally competitive with them. And we haven't raised this in probably 8 to 10 years, the sub pay, but we think we need to jump it up a little bit. And so we were thinking about 160 for the daily rate instead of 140, and 185 instead of 165 for the long-term rate. 160 is still way below the 180 to 190 that the other school districts are. But we also know that people enjoy coming to sub here because of it being a very welcoming school district to work in. So we don't think we have to try to compete with them as far as the financial number is, but I think we need to get that gap instead of $50 down to like $30, and that we won't see as many jump ship then on us. I don't know that you necessarily need to approve this and, formally, but we certainly want you to recognize the need and be okay with it. It would be our job to make it within the budget that we're given. And I'm assuming, based on the amount of subs we have in a day and it being a quarter of the school year done, so on and so forth, I would say we're looking at a $20,000 to $30,000 increase for the rest of the year in our sub costs. And we think that that's really important for the teachers, so they don't have to be taken out of their prep times to cover, and sometimes do without. So yeah, how you guys feel about that?
Can I just ask how confident are we that that $20 a day will translate into people not just making more money when they do sub here, because they're always just going to sub here and actually attract more people to sub here?
Unfortunately, I think that's a great question, but I don't think you're going to find out until after the fact. You got to run with it and see what happens. And 2 months from now, if we see that it's not working, then we need to reevaluate and come back with another idea.
Okay, so that's well within the thought processes.
Yeah.
Let's just try this and just see how this works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask what our sub system is? Our teachers, is it an automated system?
From like ASAP. So they have to reach out to us to get into our system and go through all of that. So it's not like teachers on call or anything like that. It all goes manually to write stuff.
And we don't think we need to go to teachers on call yet. We don't want to pay that cost. We want to do it ourselves still.
Is there a reason?
Try to fix that.
Is there a reason we wouldn't have pulled Kokona, Appleton?
Freedom, well, they're not in our,
They're not in our
they're not in our
CISA,
CISA.
so we don't have that data.
Okay.
What was the long-term number again?
160 and 185. We just went up $20 across the board. So that would put us, up there with Howard Swamico area.
Do we have a number of times in the district where we just don't get a sub for the day? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that then pulls from teachers and students learning and stuff like that. Okay.
I think you gotta try it.
If you averaged it out, it would probably average out 4 times a week. That was between the 3 schools.
Almost daily.
I was just saying it's almost daily.
Daily. I mean, there's every once in a while. First day school, we were good.
Yeah, we don't have a sub and another teacher has to take over.
Within the 3 buildings, It's at least 40 cents.
Out of curiosity, how much do we spend on subbing a year? You're probably not gonna know that off the top of your head, but I don't know.
Well, what did I say? 20 to 30,000 for a quarter of the years. Some costs are probably around 60 grand.
You're expecting us to increase 20 to 30 grand? For the year, it's good.
I'm sorry. So that will put us at 80 to 120. I'm sorry. 80 to 120,000 based on that raw data, because we're a quarter of the way through the school year, right?
I mean, rough estimate.
So 80,000 would be about 20 grand, 30,000 would be 120. So somewhere between 80 and 120.
What were you referring to?
How much we spend?
Total spend
Total
on
spend.
sub teachers. I mean, right, if you look at probably for a later date conversation, but can you overstaff part-time, make your costs and build in your internal subs versus shopping out, right? Not saying, but just asking the question.
Like what we did for COVID, like COVID each building, that's what you're.
Yeah.
Probably
Yep.
actually low. Now that I think about it, that's probably way low.
I was thinking that was pretty low.
So if you look at $140 a day and you have 10 people, that's $1,400 a
Yeah.
day times 170 days. Yeah, it's more like 200,000.
Just asking the question, like really, does it, there's other benefits and things, but if you were selling it as a part-time, that, well,
You said you put it out of the paper. Are we gonna put this all over social media and stuff too?
Katie has it.
And it's on weekend. Like it's been, it never comes back.
Every
Oh,
district.
yeah.
Good luck.
So for,
Do teachers get compensated for subbing?
Yeah, they buy new cars.
we're expecting like a 20 to 30 increase, where are we thinking that out of?
We're,
Or is budget?
we have some personnel changes that, we hope that you're gonna approve next time. The personnel changes allows us a little bit of flexibility in some other areas. Don't take anything personally around
I'm
here.
not going to.
okay. Any other questions?
Any chance we can get the season 6 data for the valley schools?
We can try.
Well, do you just want to know Cocona and Freedom? I mean, I can find that out.
Yeah, it appears that we're close enough there, but I mean,
Cocona, Freedom, and Little Sugar.
Oh, I bet you. I know some of them. I know some of them.
Little Hall.
I don't know, I can't remember.
What is Melinda now?
Yeah. if you want.
I've got connections in all.
Somebody call Melinda, she would know.
Maybe not that.
I think that I'll be another router to make sure our target's the right target.
I love the fact that we're not locked into it though, that it's in pencil, right? So if it doesn't work, like we can just readjust. We're not like shooting for the moon,
No.
right? And realizing that we didn't have to. Right?
I think
I love the approach. I think it's a good approach.
Not be great though, to be like, oh, we overshot and go back to one.
We're not overshooting.
Right, yeah, absolutely, that, correct.
So we're seeing like Kakona's 170, we need to be at 180 for.
Anything else? All right, discussion on the health insurance renewal, long-term care.
Sure. So we have our insurance renews January 1st. We met with our insurance consultants. Industry trend on the health insurance increases is 8 to 12%. Sometimes a lot more depending on your experience. We do have a good deal with Robin Health Partners that they serve Bell and Data Care primarily. Initially, they came to us with a 3.9% increase, which is still really good under the industry trend.
I beat them up a little bit and said, hey, I want that to be around 3%. Because, so the board has a cap that's set for employees. So the board pays $21,080 towards the plan. And for a family plan, and $9,867 for a single plan. And our plans are over that, so the balance of that goes to the employees pay that difference, right? So because the plans are over, any increase that we have when is felt entirely by employees, right? So we want to try to keep that as low as possible. They came back and were willing to go to 2.5%, which I thought was really good. So deductible right now, no changes. We have a $5,000 deductible on a family plan, $2,500 on a single plan. No changes to the deductible, no changes to plan design. So 2.5%, we thought that was pretty good. We have employee meetings set for next week to go through that. So we'll go through the open enrollment period where they can just choose to make changes if they want to. Get everyone signed up and ready to go for January 1. One thing that they're offering, which was a bit of a surprise to me, is they're offering a voluntary long-term care plan, which would be at no cost to the district. So we would not pay for that at all. It'd be up to the employee if they want to take it. It also is a direct bill option, so it wouldn't even hit payroll if we chose not to do that. I believe the premiums on that are age-based, so I think it can be pretty expensive for people. So we need to have at least 10 people that would sign up for that. I don't know if that'll be fruitful for our staff or not, but it kind of seems like if there's no cost to the district, why not offer it and see if people are interested in it, and if it takes off, then it's a benefit for staff, right? So that's kind of where we're at.
Is that a benefit that would also be available to spouse or just employee?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would guess just the employee. That would be my guess. But that is a great question. Any other questions on that? No.
Good job negotiating. I like it.
Doesn't always work that way. Usually they want to increase deductible or change plan design, shopping carriers and things like that. So pretty painless.
All right, any other questions for Dan?
Good work, Dan.
All right. Next is special education Tiger Talks.
I sent you. Yep.
I'll just get that hooked up. Email? Yes.
I'll send you.
Okay, it'll be up very shortly. My apologies. I didn't see it.
All right, so just an overview of our special ed departments. To start off, just want to look at the disability categories that we look at when students are referred for an evaluation. So these are just the different areas that when students are eligible for special education, they could potentially qualify for. I had data going back to 2017-18, so we're just going to kind of compare how much we have grown in numbers and in student needs since that year, as far as special ed staffing, and then also programming options. So for student numbers, these numbers, the total numbers for 17-18 and 2025-26 include only those categories that you saw up there. Speech and language is not included. So we have roughly like 39 to 49 kids each year that are speech only. In 2017-18, about 10% of our student population were students with disabilities, and the state average is 13%. So we are well below the state average. The other thing that's important to note is that the 2017-18 numbers are end of year numbers and our current numbers are beginning of year numbers. So we have a whole bunch of evals that are in process right now. And those numbers will be much higher at the end of the year. Currently our percentage of special ed students is 12%, so it has gone up, but we are still well below the state average, which is now 14%. Go ahead. Yeah. Teaching staff, 17-18, we had 8.5 FTEs for teachers. We've had some huge growth at the middle school level and have added, in December of 2022, we added a middle school teacher because we had like 12 students transfer in just to the middle school that fall. So, and then in fall of 2024, we added the behavior focus classroom. All right, caseload recommendations. So DPI used to give a calculation that we used to determine what caseload should be for our special education teachers. Basically what they do is they weigh each disability category and determine the level of need. So for example, a level 1 SLD student, so maybe a student who just has like some support in study hall, those students would be multiplied by 1.7. And then level 3 ID would be multiplied by 3.5. So it just weighs students with higher needs a little bit heavier. So all students in the building are calculated, and 26 is the recommended caseload per teacher. And you can see that we were well below that in 2017-18. And currently we are over that at the elementary school and at the high school. When we look just at level of need, you can see that, you know, our level of needs have increased a lot as well. Overall, we have a lot more students who are considered level 2 and level 3, which basically just means more services. You know, our students were more involved, who have more related services, OT, PT, and they have counseling or significant behaviors. So the middle school, let's see. Here.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the middle school, basically that number includes our behavior focus and alternate placement students, just because that is where that program is located. And actually all but one student in there is in the middle school. So we have one elementary student who is currently in there. At the high school, we have grown a lot. We have currently 21 students who have a level 2 need and 8 with, or 3 with 8 with a level 3 need. And the reason why we're seeing that increase is because we used to have a lot of students attending Civil Hop, and Civil Hop is seeing an increase in needs as well, and we work with a lot of different school districts. So they're currently unable to accept students. So in 2017-18, we had 18 students attending Civil Hop, and right now we have 10. So we're kind of seeing those ID needs rise again. And we did have an ID program at one time. However, it kind of just, you know, the number of students in that program decreased, and then we no longer need a teacher. So we're just kind of seeing that come full circle again.
Is Civil Hop offering you any projections on what they're seeing further out of?
Right now, they are saying for sure not until next year. but they have a waiting list, and I'm not sure how that's determined, if it's based on the level of student need, or if it's based on the order that
It came in.
it came in. So, yeah. So there's actually a new matrix. I just used the old one so that we could compare apples to apples. But the new matrix is way more comprehensive. And actually DPI doesn't want to endorse one, but WCAS has. So this is the one that we'll use like when we look at open enrollment later. And it really does not just look at like academically what the student needs, and behaviorally, it looks at all of the teachers' duties. So it looks at curriculum, behavior, instruction, if the student has health needs, if they have safety needs, and then the teacher time for like communicating and planning too. So it's kind of nice because it's super comprehensive, and again, it uses numbers to weigh, but it considers all of those areas. So, and then the new terms are just minimal, moderate, extensive, and comprehensive. And they are suggesting that caseloads are capped at 12 if all students are minimal and moderate, and capped at 10 if 3 or more students are extensive or comprehensive. So currently we have 3 students at the high school who are comprehensive because of, you know, not having civil act as an option. So, and interesting, they have that we count students twice if they're extensive and count them 3 times if they're comprehensive. So basically you would get up to that 10 with 3 significant students. Any questions about that?
I don't have any questions about that. I just have some questions on some of the stuff that you said earlier, but I can wait till the end. I can wait till the end.
I was kind of excited for that because teachers do a lot more than just, you know, like pull out for academics and behaviors. They have a lot of paperwork, they have a lot of, there's a lot more that goes into their job. So it's kind of nice that that is being weighed and considered now too. The caseloads. All right, so leadership environment, basically that's just a mandate with IDEA. We have to, as much as possible, educate students with disabilities alongside non-disabled peers. Least restrictive environment is determined case by case by the IEP team. So currently we have 10 cross-cat classrooms. Basically each teacher has classroom. We have 1 behavior focused classroom, and then our early childhood 4K teacher is contracted through Brown County. And currently her students are between 2 different classrooms. All right, so this is our spectrum of services. So when we look at the bottom, it's basically students who are in all general education, and then the next tier is 80% or more of their day in general ed. And then the next is 40 to 79% of the day. So those 3 options are really what we can do with the cross-cat programs. 2 levels above that is a specialized program in the district. And then we can see the private day school way up at the top would be civil hop. So essentially, when kids would transfer in who had significant ID needs, we were kind of jumping 2 levels. So I see this as a good opportunity because it is less restrictive for kids. They can potentially, this is an opportunity for us to have ID students attend their home school rather than sending them, you know, to a separate school. So we are seeing a need for an ID program. So potential funding sources, transfer service. This is something that we used back in when we hired the middle school teacher. We had an influx of a whole bunch of students. Basically, it's an exemption. So the school district can on a Wednesday. So Dan, should I let you talk about this?
Sure.
I think I can.
So in cases where students move into the district, you are allowed to do a transfer of service because you are transferring that service from one municipality or entity to another. So when you apply to DPI for that, it creates a revenue limit exemption, which allows us to then put that really into the budget then and fund it that way. There are pros and cons for that. So pros are that you're able to fund, things for when people come into you. And the cons are a bit of a timing issue, right? So we would not be able to apply for transfer of service until next year if we were to make a change. So the district would have some upfront costs in order to do that, but budgetarily, and we obviously look at the budget for sure, but we also want to, do what's best for kids, right? So if we need to make that happen, this is a way to not have the entire cost, in perpetuity, solely within the current budget that we have.
So we currently have one student who legally we could do transfer service with. The other student is a resident, so we would look at potentially another funding source, which is the high cost. So high cost basically just looks at if there are eligible expenses that we need to have that we did not, previously already have in place. So in this case, it would be, an IB program. We really do not have anything like specifically for that. So we would need a teacher in another classroom. And then also just equipment, like sensory things that we don't need for a lot of our students. Daily living type of things. So, it's okay.
Try helping.
So, yeah. Thanks for, going over that.
Sure, no problem.
Because I know when to go over.
So Angie, are you putting this on our radar because you feel like the need is there for an ID program?
Yes.
At which level? All levels?
At the
High school specifically right now?
The students who have come in are at the high school. And actually, there are some safety concerns because there are like 15 other students in the classroom. And so it's just not structured in a way that someone can teach, cross-CAD and then still have these students in the classroom. So Eric, I don't know if you have anything additional to add.
I've been in districts that are similar size and they typically have at a high school a standalone IB program that really services, and it's really I would say some very special programming and unique programming that we can offer kids. And so it's a great opportunity with some of our students, not just maybe a new student with a transfer of service, but other students that would also fit into that program for us to put something together that I think is pretty special for kids. And that is pretty comparable in other districts of this size. I was actually, when Angie and I talked, I was actually surprised we didn't have an IB program. And for a common reason, we don't necessarily have or didn't have the students. So now we have those students. And so now we need to build that. And I think there's some really cool ideas floating around. Talking with staff members at the high school, they're already jumping in, as far as with ideas and what programming can look like and FIAD and other things. And so I think it's a real cool opportunity to have something for all of our students. I think we have some spaces that we're talking about and some different
That's my next
ways
question. Do you have some
to
spots?
set that up. So that's, I think, to me, really exciting because we get to build it and we get to make it, unique to those individual kids and their needs. Great.
When you when you see the referrals for these and just special ed in general, you said we're at about 12% state average, about 14%. You did that end of year comparison, and now we just had a beginning of the year comparison to an end of year comparison. So there are a number of referrals that are there. On average, how many would you say for a student is referred for special education? How many of those students then qualify for that? Yeah.
It's hard to say. Most of our referrals are at the elementary level. Like, for
Okay.
example, right now we have 7 early childhood and 48 referrals. And a few of those, the families are in a private school, so, and are not likely to leave the private school, so they probably won't be serviced. So out of those 7 kids, 4 are likely to qualify for services. And then in other buildings, we, high school, middle school, there are less referrals. We have just a few going in each of those buildings.
And then do you know like numbers, and you don't have to have them, but do we ever look at trending of this? Like, okay, we have a large senior, and I don't think we do this year, but we have a large senior class, right? And we have a number of kids that are that qualify for special education that are moving out of that, right? And then what do we have coming in? How do we backfill that? So do we track and try and buy like grade as start to extrapolate how this is going to affect us in the future?
So we do caseload predictions each year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of try to project out, and we do that, I think in January, typically when we look at open enrollment. So I would use those calculations, and then we try to add on like for move-ins for each building.
Okay. And then when you talk about this ID program, when we're talking about the high school, and I think it's a great idea, I'm just looking at longevity of that program. Do you see the need for that, like, increasing in the future?
We do have several students at the middle school who
Okay.
are coming up who will need ID programming.
Okay.
So, yep. In fact, currently, some of our high school students are walking over to the middle school during the day to do some of the functional activities. We're kind of doing the best we can to create those opportunities and be creative with that right now.
So having that at the high school would fit into that role of that least restricted environment too, because then they'd still be around classmates for as much of the part of the day as they possibly could then too.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right. With that, we've come to the last meeting agenda item.
Before we close, it's like a reminder, I will not be here for the board meeting tonight. I'll make a motion to approve.
Also, this was out of our development, so there's any suggestions for meetings, so.
So can I take that from the board that you want us to bring all the things that we talked about tonight back on the 19th for approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Affirmative head nod.
What was that?
Affirmative head nod.
All right, so we got a motion on the table from John to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, Jason second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is.
I just want to write it. I'm not sure if I just sit next to Nikki, but.
Oh, Mr. Putting that in there.